Is it recorded?
It said it was, Lisa.
Did it? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even hear it. So
Yeah,
it did. It was okay.
Yep.
Usually I hear it. I didn't hear anything.
And there's a message in the upper left-hand corner. It says it's been.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's ANC 34G regular public meeting. Time is 7:06 p.m. Calling the meeting to order. The commission has a quorum. We do have two commissioners that are expected to join us a little later on tonight. So once they come on, we will have them introduce themselves. And just to let the community know, we called this meeting virtually because we have so much on the agenda. Near the end of the year, there's always a lot of commission business that we're trying to get through. I just saw Commissioner Lynch join. As well as we got a couple grant applications. So as opposed to try to jam everything in inappropriate time at the community center where we can only be at the center until 9 o'clock. That's when the center closes. We're hosting online to give us more time. So with that, I will go into commissioner introductions. Starting with myself, my name is Lisa Gore. I'm the chair of the commission, and I'm also the commissioner for single member District 01, which is Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Woods. Commissioner Gosselin.
Hi, I'm Peter Gosselin. I'm the vice chair and commissioner for District 6, which is largely the west side of Connecticut Avenue back to Friendship Heights. Welcome, everybody. I just want to reiterate what the chair said. We've got a hell of a lot of stuff on the agenda tonight, so we're going to try to be organized, more organized than sometimes about sticking to the schedule. Thank you.
Commissioner Nash.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Nash, and I am the commissioner for District 2, which is the southeasternmost district in this ANC.
Commissioner Sherman.
Jim and I just switched. So he's 2, I'll be 3. I think you said 2, Jim. You're 3, but that's okay.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
We're cousins over here, so it's all right. I'm Commissioner Sherman, Bruce Sherman for District 2.
Commissioner Zeldin.
No, I'm commissioner for District 2.
All right.
Michael Zeldin, commissioner for 3G04.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Hi, everyone. Zach Ferguson for single member District 07. I'm also the ANC treasurer.
And Commissioner Lynch.
Hey, everybody. Peter Lynch, commissioner for SMD 05.
And last but not least, Luis Chica. Can you introduce yourself?
Luis, come on camera.
I choked on peppers, man. Sorry. Yeah, I was getting kicked out of my room.
You didn't introduce yourself, fella.
Introduce yourself, Luis.
Hello, my name is Luis Chica. I'm the IT person.
Thank you. So as Luis said, he is our IT support. He will be helping out in the chat. So if you guys run into any issues, make sure you DM him and he can help you out. In terms of meeting procedures, we're hosting virtually tonight. So if you have a question, make sure that you use the react button, which is down at the bottom middle left of your screen. If you hit that button, there is another button at the very end that says raise your hand. Please use that feature if you have a question or you want to comment on an agenda item. As I said at the top of the meeting, we're going to, stick as strict to the agenda time as we can to get through everything. There are some hot button issues on the agenda. We're going to have, try to get enough time in for commissioner and community comments. I would ask that everybody be respectful in the meeting. Please respect your community members and neighbors, and just, be as appropriate in the chat as you can. And with that, commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? I have a few.
I've got one.
Okay, Commissioner Sherman, you go first.
Just the one concerning the public space permit application by Knollwood. They don't actually have an application pending, so we can remove that from the agenda.
Okay. Any others? Commissioner Zeldin?
Yes, for my permit request, it's for 6111 Broad Branch Road. And unless I'm making a mistake, unless there's somebody also on with me from Casada, but I think I just typed it in wrong.
Okay, I'm gonna check. I didn't get a chance to check on that when you raised it the first time, but I'll check in a portion of, in the meeting when I get a chance.
Yeah.
'Cause
I don't think so, Lisa. I think it's just this 6111 Broad Branch.
Okay, I'm still gonna double check because
Please.
I take that from the email from the BZA.
Okay.
Any other
Well, if anyone's on the phone that is from Casada that I've forgotten, speak up, and we'll do them both.
Right, exactly. Any others, commissioners?
What are we doing about, meeting minutes?
I'm gonna ask that we take off the consent agenda the September 23rd.
Okay, that's under, you want to do that under the consent agenda then?
I want to take it off. So right now we're at changes to the agenda. I want to remove that from the consent agenda. Bruce, are you okay with that?
Yeah, if that's fine. If we wanted to, if other commissioners need to take a look at them, that's one thing. If you, Lisa, wanted simply to incorporate your edits, then we could proceed on that basis, whatever you want to do.
So I haven't looked at the 23rd at all, except if that was, so the one that I did was off of the original.
No, right. So it's the second one that I sent you, right? With the on the letter.
Yes, and I do think Commissioner Gosselin absolutely needs to take a look at that.
Okay.
And September 9th, I returned those. I would highly encourage all commissioners to look at all meetings, and I know minutes. We haven't been maybe adhering to that as strictly as possible, but there's a lot of conversation in the minutes, and those are the official records of what happens. So we had two pretty big conversations in both of those September minutes. On the ones for September 9th, if folks could just come in behind my additions, there's some clarifications we need on the motions. One of them, the specific language. And then there's just some other edits in there. Any
Okay.
other changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay, so I move that we adopt the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioners, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, 7-0 carried. Thank you. Okay.
Lisa, can I ask whoever is on the screen under the heading Chevy Chase voice, put their name there so we know who it is that's speaking?
Yes, you can. You did ask them that. Chevy Chase voice, if you wouldn't mind adding your name so we can address you and we know who is talking. Okay, commissioners, in terms of the consent agenda, we have only one item on there for approval, the $125 reimbursement to Commissioner Ferguson for Luis Chica's hours. I move that we adopt the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, approved 7-0. Thank you. And this
6-0 with an abstaining from me.
I'm sorry. Then I have to go back. All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed, raise your hand. Abstentions, raise your hand. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ferguson. All right. And this is a portion of the agenda where we ask residents to share any items that they might have with us, concerns, issues, anything that you all want to bring to the ANC that's not on the agenda. We allot for 10-minute discussion to just kind of talk about things that residents are concerned with or want to bring to our attention. If anyone has anything, please use the raise your hand function and I'll call on you to speak. Okay, seeing nothing, we'll proceed through the agenda. So the first item up for discussion is Commissioner Zeldin. Discussion and possible vote for 6111 Broad Branch Road.
Right. Thank you. And I would ask Jad if you're there, and Krista if you're on, can they be elevated?
Can you say their full name? So
Yes, Krista is Krista, KRISTA SCHAUER. And there's Jad right there, JADATALLAH.
So I am here, but I am having trouble with my video camera hooking. So are you okay with just
There
listening?
you are.
Oh, okay, good, great, thank you. Good.
So-
Well, my name is Krista Schauer, and I am the architect representing Jad and Nicole Atala. They are the owners of a residential property at 6111 Broad Branch Road. The Atalas would like to add a second story to a one-story portion of their house in the back. And this is to create a primary suite and an in-house in-home office. The property is zoned R1B. And as you may know, the development standard for R1B requires that a rear yard be 25 feet. The existing one-story portion of the house is encroaching that 25 feet by 14.5 feet. And so therefore, they're seeking relief from the development standard through a special exception granted by the Board of Zoning Adjustment as required to move forward for this project. So we're here this evening to ask the ANC to support their application to the BZA for a special exception. So I'm going to try and share my screen and walk you through the project.
I think you need to make her a co-host. Is that correct?
Yes, it's saying sharing is not turned
Yes,
on.
he needs to be made a co-host.
You make her a co-host.
And let me just say, while Krista is being made a co-host, I met with Krista at the property. We walked the property. The neighbors have all been queried about it. There are no objections, and there are no obvious impediments to light or any such things that this new structure would impede.
Let me just interrupt here. Luis is saying his status does not allow him to make Krista.
I've already made her.
Good, fine.
Yeah, for some
Okay.
reason it won't let me like elevate it.
Okay, no problem, Louis.
And Krista, are you able to share? There you go. Great.
Okay, I'm going to start with the photographs to give you a visual. This is the house as it faces Broad Branch Road. And it's on the corner of Broad Branch and Runnymede Place. So this is the side, which is this side right here. So they have a neighbor that's parallel with them on Broad Branch. This is the back, the rear yard. And so this fence right here is just inside their property line by about a foot. This is the fence that you can see from Runnymede Place. The property is an odd shape. It's not rectangular, and I'll show you that in a site plan soon. But I just wanted to give you some context first. This is the existing one-story addition, so they're wanting to go up on the second story here. And this is a good view, both of these from Runnymede. So this is the existing first story addition that we'll be building on top of here at the second story, and you can see it over here as well. So we'll be taking the same heights from the existing roof here, gutter lines and all that, and extending over here. Site plan. So here we have, I can't get it over anymore. So you can see that this is an odd-shaped lot being on the corner. The 25-foot rear yard that's required, represents that dotted line here. This area is the two-story brick house that you saw. This is the outline of the one-story portion. We have a building restriction line across here that we can't go past. So the new second floor addition would be along this footprint here. So we've got 10.5 feet from this existing corner to the property line, and therefore the 14.5 feet is from here to the 25-foot rear yard. Let me show you.
Krista,
Okay. Yes.
just ask you a question going back to the site plan.
Okay. Hold on.
Does the proposed structure go beyond the footprint of the existing first floor?
No, not at all.
So why is a special exception needed? I mean, you presumably already have a special exception for what is there now, isn't that correct?
We need it to go up, because we're going on the second floor of this addition here. So we're there for, let me read the wording. We're not conforming to the use and development standards. So the addition also needs that special exception for this 14.5 feet here.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to, before I leave this too, I just want you to know this corner is the closest part to the property line there. And so it's not really parallel. It's, roughly at a 45. So that's the closest point, and then everything comes further away. So here's the first floor plan. This is all existing. And this is the new. So we have a portion here where our building restriction line is that will remain a one-story because we can't go over that. Oh, let me show the elevations. So here's the elevation from Runnymede Place. So here's the one story that we'll maintain, and there's the second story on top. This is the view of the back from the neighbor on Runnymede. This is what they'll see. So this is the two-story portion. This is actually angled. If you remember that on the site plan, it was angled. And then this is all existing here below. And then this is what the neighbors will see on the neighbor on Broad Branch. So they'll have a full two-story portion here. So again, going back to the site plan, this corner is the closest corner to that back property line. And in this one, this is the corner that's closest to that back property line. And then I just want to bring up we've got 5 letters of support from neighbors. So this is 6111. We've got from this property, this property, this property, this property, and this property. Those 5 letters of support. Any questions? That's all I've got here.
Commissioners, any questions? Krista, thank you. Do you mind taking the presentation down so I could see the commissioners? We're getting ready to vote.
Yes.
So Lisa, I'm asking that we approve this request, and I will, if approved, enter it into the TOPS system as long as you remain my tutor.
I second.
Commissioners, all those in favor in approving the application, please raise your hand. Okay, 7-0. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, Commissioner Nash.
You have to de-elevate Krista, although Krista, you could remain on for the next 2.5 hours if you want.
Thank you for the invitation.
Don't jump into a no so quickly.
Okay, enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion and possible vote on public space construction permit for 4354 28th Street. Commissioner Nash.
I'm sorry, I was not, discussion of policies for what's, this is Casada Street?
Oh,
No. 4354 28th Street.
4354 28th Street. Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't have any information on that.
do we know what the deadline for the BZA or the public space?
Yeah, I put all that in the email.
Are we gonna blow through a deadline here for these people?
Looks like it.
I'm, yeah, my email is not working on my main computer. My ANC email for some reason. I can get it on this one. But so Lisa, you sent me an email on this matter. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think BZA sends an email to the commissioner as well. Yeah, and I put it out on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look into this and get back. I apologize.
Yeah, definitely contact, this is just my suggestion, contact the homeowners. Because our next meeting is December 9th.
Right.
I believe I sent 2 emails on this matter, pointing to the fact that if I'm remembering correctly, the hearing is in 2 days, a day or 2 days. Because I remember stating that we should probably bring the application to the meeting so that we could sign off on it today. I believe this hearing is on Wednesday.
Not good.
No. So just please check your email and please reach out to the homeowners and BZA.
Yeah, okay. I'm
right.
looking at it now, but I'm having trouble with my email here.
It would have come from BZA, Lisa?
I
Sender?
forward to every commissioner what comes into the ANC email box. And most of the time the commissioner is copied. So they will generally copy the commissioner and the ANC. When I get it in the ANC email box, I forward it straight to the commissioner as well. So it's probably, at least 2 notifications on it. Okay, we're gonna move on so we can keep with the time. Discussion and grant application from Friends of Chevy Chase Circle for spring plantings. Commissioner Gosselin.
Just to disclose at the outset, I am on the board of the Friends of Chevy Chase Circle. I want to see, Luis, do you see a Tracy D'Angelo here? I see 2 Tracys, but I don't think either of them. I will message her. This is a request for us for a grant or perhaps a direct expense, which I'll describe in a minute, for us to support the purchase of bulbs for planting the circle for next spring. I believe we have done this before. The request is for about $1,200. When Commissioner Ferguson, who's the treasurer, saw this, he wrote me a note saying that we could do it as a grant, or OANC has apparently encouraged us for some things that are very discreet to simply make it a direct expense. I think there's an argument for making it a direct expense because I think this is for tulip bulbs mostly, and they should be already in the ground or in the ground before the ground freezes. And so this is an expense that ought to be made quickly. And our current rules for grant.
Commissioner Gosselin, let me go to a point of order really quick. So there is a Tracy Bowen that just put in the chat. Is there a permit being discussed tonight on public space construction on 3000 to 3399 Casada Street, which is the address that I originally had on the agenda? Commissioner Zeldin, are you still on? Because this one is yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's bring it up.
Okay, can I just say, I will proceed on the issue of this grant application and try to get the Tracy who is connected to this grant application online while we're dealing with the
Okay, so we'll do Quesada Street right now.
Yes, please.
Able to. Okay. Tracy, I'm getting ready to elevate you. Okay, Michael, she's on.
Okay. I don't see her.
Yeah,
She's
hello.
elevated.
Hello, this is Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, I'm just asking if I'm not part of a public permit. I'm just asking, it was on the agenda, and is there some type of public permit being discussed tonight around Casada Street?
Well, this is what we're trying to figure out. I don't have anything in my notes about having been contacted by the homeowners about this. So it's going to require some homework to figure that out.
Okay.
Michael, I'm going to forward you and I think I sent this one around too, the email from TOPS. The hearing is on December 5th, and it's definitely Casada Street.
Okay, send it to me right now. My only on my phone is my ANC email working. So send it, if you would, to that and my Gmail both, please.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
But do you know what this is for? This project? Is it related to the park? Because it says public space.
No, it would be related to that particular address, I'm assuming.
Well, the address says 3000 to 3399, the entire block.
Yeah.
And you can't, if you look it up, you can't find anything with that address.
So Michael will have to go into TOPS and pull the documents to see exactly what it's referring to. The commissioner,
unless does the city doesn't need permitting if they're doing something with respect to the park?
Yeah, we would. I don't think we get a public space permit application for that.
Because it's the whole block of Casada, unless they were doing construction on it. I'm gonna have to call.
Okay.
And how will we find out what you learn?
I'll post it on the listservs.
Okay, thank you.
We'll post it on ours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Gosselin, go on.
Yeah, I am trying to reach Tracy D'Angelo now. Louise, if you see her in the list of participants, please elevate her. so she can answer questions. Otherwise, I can just say I've told you the gist of this, which is this is for plantings. I think mostly tulip bulbs for the Chevy Chase Circle to be planted ASAP for next spring. I believe we have supported this in the past. I believe there's also support coming from the village of Chevy Chase across the line in Maryland. Tracy, if you are on, or anybody from Friends of Chevy Chase Circle, would you raise your hand so Louise can elevate you and you can answer more fully questions? While we're waiting for that, I just I want to understand from Zach whether there are any pros or cons to doing grants versus direct expenditure. I'd never heard of the direct expenditure route. I guess one advantage is if we do this as a grant, we have to discuss it tonight, but not vote on it until next meeting, which delays it several more weeks. So I'm ceteris paribus, I'm all for voting on it tonight. So
Sure, I can talk to that. I was surprised to learn as treasurer, as I read through rules and guidance from OANC, that they actually, I thought, everything really should be a grant. But I read from OANC that they encourage ANCs to do direct expenses. There is a lot of red tape around grants. Like you said, you have to have 2 separate meetings where the applicant fills out a form, they present it, we vote on it at the next meeting. There's status updates, there's a closeout report. There's a lot of opportunities for things to fall in the cracks and for miscommunications. And when it's very clear that there's something that benefits the community, that's eligible, the ANC can write a check and pay for that eligible expense directly. That saves everyone a little bit more time and paperwork. And again, I think I mentioned this before, is some people have found the restrictions on ANC funds to be quite bureaucratic. And one of the reasons I think we have a lot of money right now is because it's hard to find expenses that are perfectly eligible. Like you can't replicate city services, you can't fund things that were going to be funded anyways. There's some other rules, but I think OANC is working on that to try to make them more flexible so people actually use these ANC monies. But I think just from hearing it on the agenda, it sounds like a public benefit. Obviously, it's a public space. People in our neighborhood go through. One curiosity I have is, can the tool is a circle split between Maryland and DC, and would this project be allowed to only be on the DC side, or would it be both? Because I could see OANC asking to make sure this project is not benefiting Maryland.
The circle is National Park Service land, so I don't think it's municipal jurisdictions that control here. Just a few details that I got wrong. The amount requested is 1,316, and the community priorities to which the application applies. This is in our online grant application form. Tracy, the Friends representative of the Circle, neighborhood beautification activities, and Friends of Parks and Recreation projects, both of which are categories that we offer people in asking for grant applications. Still trying to get Tracy on the line, but I mean, I advocate doing this as a direct expense so that the Friends can get on to getting these things planted so they come up next spring. I guess I just add one other thing with regard to this, and that is that the applicant notes that the National Park Service has been asked to help in the planting, and the application says, we are requesting funding to purchase tulip bulbs for the Chevy Chase Circle. We think this will provide a beautiful and uplifting experience for local residents and commuters passing through the area. We also hope that this will draw attention to the Chevy Chase Circle as we begin a spring fundraising campaign. I just say, as somebody who sat on the board for a couple of years, it is part of the National Park Service, but we are blessed to have neighbors on both sides of the line doing as much as they do to get that, to keep that circle in the shape it's in. And so I think that we would be well served by making this grant or taking on this expense. Did I just see that Tracy has
Yeah.
come up? Yeah.
Peter, let me ask you a question though. So if we make a direct expenditure, this is NPS land. Have you talked at all with OANC to see if we can do that?
I
Since
have not.
it's, federal land?
I've not. I mean, I haven't. Tracy, do you have any experience with this? On camera, please.
There we go. Hi guys, thank you so much. So this is new to me as far as I do not have experience. I'm actually new to the board of Friends of Chevy Chase Circle, and so I'm not even totally certain that I understand all of the acronyms that you were just saying as far as whether or not it would be okay. I do know that we did run this idea by the National Park Service, and they said that they did not seem to have any problems with it. And they said that they would be able to plant the bulbs should we acquire the funding for them from you guys.
Okay, but I think the question that Lisa is asking is whether the city has problems or the agency that oversees this, the ANCs, has a problem with our spending money on federal land. And
Yeah, and that I have no idea what the answer to that is.
I mean, if this is seen, I mean, we could do two things in this situation. One is we can conditionally approve the expense. Alternatively, put it off to December 9th.
We can't approve anything tonight, Peter, for well, if you want to go the route of a grant, right? If you want to do the expenditure route, I wouldn't recommend that the ANC conditionally approve it. I would just say that we come back and approve it on the 9th after we have clearance from OANC.
Well, then fine. Then if we're going to do that, then we might as well stay with the grant application because, well, unless Zach has some reason why we.
I mean, that's my comment. The commission is free. You're free to put the motion and you're free to take it to a vote. My concern is that we, we've been talking with the OANC quite a bit, that they're okay with this being an expenditure since it's on federal land. That's my only, thing that I would want to clarify.
Well, let me.
Might have other comments.
I'm with clarifying that. Tracy, I feel like I owe you and the board an apology. That had not dawned on me as an issue either. And I've been on the board longer than you have, and it still didn't dawn on me.
No, yeah, this is, I'm learning as we go here.
So, do other commissioners have comments? If they don't, I just say, I guess, since we're going to wait until the 9th, we can decide the 9th which way to go, presuming we get some clearance to do this. Any other commissioners with comments?
Yeah, I think we have to wait until we find out what we're authorized to do.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm game. I'm sorry, Tracy, and I apologize to the board as well. But I think that's probably the right route.
Well, it sounds, I'm just delighted that you guys are considering this at all, and thank you very much. So we'll look forward to being back on the 9th then.
Very good, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go to the next. Thank you, Commissioner Gosselin.
Lisa, do we have a mocher on the phone?
Hi, yes, you do.
So can I ask you, because I'm looking through tops, I'm just very concerned about missing a deadline, what this 3,300 to 3,399 block of Casada.
I have not been briefed on that yet. I'm happy to reach out to leadership and see if they have any insight on what that permit specifically is for and get back to you, but it is not on my radar as of this moment.
Okay.
And I apologize for that.
No, Kendall, it's fine. But it is a whole block and nobody has contacted me. I looked through all my emails while we were searching. I can't find it. Not to say it didn't come in, but I can't find it. Do you need the construction permit application number?
Yes, that would be helpful.
454758. And I'll forward to you what Lisa forwarded to me. I'm sorry to the commissioners for taking this up. I just don't want to miss a deadline if we don't have.
I put my email in the chat for you to use.
Okay.
Okay, folks, let's move on with the agenda.
Thank you,
this
Ken.
item is discussion with Eaghmon Banks. Commissioner Gosselin.
Eamon Banks. Louis is on the line. Could you elevate him? Let me just briefly introduce him and the good news he brings. Eamon Banks is the COO of Georgetown Events Hospitality, which owns the Jetties chain and owns Due South, and has taken over the space that Wine and Organic had before it failed, up in the 5700 block of Connecticut Avenue. That's where the Citibank is, where the Capital One Bank was. He is bravely, he and Georgetown Events are bravely prepared to open a new restaurant up there. And he would like to introduce himself and talk about it. Now let's just see. Is he here? I just got a note saying.
Just elevated him.
Yep. Can you hear me?
And can you come on? There you are. Eamon Banks, the Chevy Chase community.
Hey, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to hear me today at your ANC meeting. My name is Eamon Banks. I'm I'm the COO of Georgetown Events. It's a local company founded by two gentlemen, one who grew up in Chevy Chase, actually. David Scribner, his father used to be the choral director at St. Albans, and Robert Blair, Bo Blair, who grew up in on Wisconsin Avenue. We have a lot of, as Peter had mentioned, we've got a lot of local roots as well as local businesses, one in Chevy Chase being the Jetties Chevy Chase at 5632 Connecticut Avenue. We also have Due South Restaurant in the Navy Yard, Millie's Restaurant in Spring Valley. We have the Surfside concept that we have at the Wharf, DuPont Circle, and the one in Wisconsin Avenue, which is our full service. We're looking to expand into the Chevy Chase neighborhood. We think that we offer a family-friendly, easily approachable menus, and throughout the city, we're known for being family-friendly and good for the neighborhoods in which we operate. So I'm just here to introduce myself. At this time, we had just finished our demolition. The permitting process in DOB is quite extensive these days. It's a much different process than before. We are currently about to go into permitting, I believe about the 13th or 14th of December for the interior. So I wanted to, introduce myself. I'll be one of the co-partners there as well, and answer any questions that anybody might have for me.
Well, let me head it off by saying, give us a rough timetable. I mean, we watched the sign with Due South sit there and say, coming in the fall of 2023.
Well, what happened there is that we had leased the smaller space to do a to-go concept. And as we were going through permitting, there were some issues with the organic wine shop, and CBRE Land Trust really didn't want that corner to be a vacant corner. I think they were having not so much issues, but they really wanted an operator that has a foothold in DC. And at that time, they came to us and said, hey, would you like to take a bigger space? Me and my partners were like, we're not really looking to expand into a huge space right now, but thank you for the offer. And as we got to our permit, we actually received our permit for the other space. And they said, hey, Bo, Eamon, David, please take over the other space. We are expanding, and it was not in our 5-year plan, but we really thought that Chevy Chase would be a welcoming community for us. And with David having his roots growing up right down the road there, we got into talking and we decided to take that space and make that a new Action Live part of the Chevy Chase Circle area and the Chevy Chase community.
Well, let me also say that as the ANC commissioner for that area, I would be happy to help you to the extent I can help at all in these things with permitting. I mean, from personal experience with the Department of Buildings, I know it can be a cumbersome process. And so you know, if you need to turn to us, please do.
I thank you, Peter. I really appreciate the thought on that. We I think we will be asking for help. We want to do an outdoor cafe on the front. We have measured it out with DDOT. I have not put it in for DDOT yet. It would not be anything that would obstruct the walkways or anything there. We would go all through the permitting of that. We would want to do a canopy that goes over it, so there's some shade from that sun. If anybody's ever walked down that Connecticut Avenue at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, the sun shines pretty brightly there. These are all things in the plan. It's going to be a very open concept, large openings onto Connecticut Avenue, glass windows. The concept in the menu is American Bistro. We'll also be putting, excuse me, part of our plan is put an ice cream shop in what is 5708. So the front of that will be where you pick up your to-go and have ice cream. There'll be dipping cabinets and things like that. We think that by taking away some of the action in the parking lot with DoorDash and things like that, that they will, so not to bother the neighbors in the back as much, that's a good place to not have people getting together in groups, or the scooters and all the things that we see with the DoorDash these days, and keeping that away from the back neighborhood, the back of where those neighborhood houses are.
Okay, first, before we go to people online, residents, do any commissioners have questions or comments? No. So Rachel Mowry has her hand up. Do you have a question? And if so, would you come online?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Mowry. I am the Main Street manager for Chevy Chase from Livingston up to Chevy Chase Circle. And I just wanted to take a quick minute to introduce myself. I think my predecessor, Anna Claire Walker, had reached out to you all when the signs first went up for due south, just to kind of connect. And then the signs came down, and I'm really excited to hear that progress is being made there. And I just wanted to make sure you knew that we did have a Main Street here on Connecticut Avenue, and that I am available to help with anything you guys need, specifically when it comes to permitting, the sidewalk cafes, and any of the other sorts of logistical things that happen kind of adjacent to the avenue. That's what I'm here to help with. And I'm super, super excited that you guys have plans to really get going here. So please let me know if there's anything I can do. I dropped my email address in a direct message in the chat for you.
Perfect.
So you have that, and I will definitely be following up. But yeah, just wanted to introduce myself and say hi, and thank you for coming on and talking to the community.
Great. Thanks, Rachel.
Amen. There's a question in the chat from Steve Connors.
Yes.
Reads, is due south in the Navy Yard permanently closed as per Pop Bill, or is it just temporarily closed?
We are in the middle of it. We're at the end of our lease there right now, and we are in talks with the landlord on what is going to progress from there. So that's kind of a Brookfield, who is one of the big asset management companies in DC. And when they took over, they bought all of Forest City's portfolio. So we're having some issues with that right now.
And one other question from me, and then I'll leave this in peace. What's most exciting about you going in up there is bringing some life to that end of Connecticut Avenue, which doesn't have much now. I think that was one of the problems that the very brave woman who tried to make a go of it at Wine and Organic ran into. Do you have any strategy that she didn't have that makes you think?
Well, I think that our track record in the city is that we bring value to neighborhoods rather than trying to insert ourselves in the neighborhood. We become part of the neighborhood. I think that this is going to be a meeting place where, whether it be people after PTA meetings, people that are working from home want to come for a lunch and do a lunch business, we're going to be approachable. Our pricing is going to be approachable. Our whole concept is approachable. I think if you've ever visited any of our places in the city, we're going in that vein, that we are DC operators. We are not coming from the outside and trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to invigorate neighborhoods. This is something that we did, as Due South has mentioned. Due South I built in I started building in 2014, and we were one of the third restaurant in the neighborhood. As that neighborhood grew and grew around us, we were a neighborhood spot. If anybody is familiar with where Millie's is at 4866 Massachusetts Avenue, that was the old Chicken Out. I remember when I first moved here in 2006, I worked across the street next to Wagshaw's, that one of the partners had a place called Dahlia that he had for a short period of time. And everything was dark down there. It's lively over there. There's kids, there's families, there's people going over there to meet and gather. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I see that far north on towards the circle is you've got banks. So you've got two banks. You've got our sandwich shop, which I think everybody really enjoys. You've got the really nice guy that owns the shoe shop over there and the leatherworking place. The couple that owns the shoe shop and the leatherworking place. You've got the yoga. I think this is something that just will add to the community, whether you go for a glass of wine or you go for ice cream. You've got people visiting you and you've had dinner at your home and you want to just go get some ice cream. I think that by hitting all of the points on Saturdays, we're huge brunch people. We love throwing the good brunch, getting breakfast involved on the weekends. I think these are all things that I'm hoping that the neighborhood will like, and it's something that we find that we're pretty good at. When we get into an area, when we see that it needs something different, we evolve and we pivot. I think that's one of the best things about this restaurant group choosing this spot.
Commissioner Sherman?
Just very quickly, Eaghmon, thanks for being here tonight. I'm all for it. Good luck. And as you progress, let us know, because I'll keep my constituents apprised just that another business is coming to that end of Connecticut Avenue. I agree. It needs to be enlivened. So
yeah,
thank you.
We are super excited about it.
Great.
I think with that, I guess I don't see one other thing, Eaghmon. In the past, with other restaurants and food outlets along the western side of Connecticut Avenue, there have been issues about what goes on in back. And there have, are you making a commitment now, or are you at least open to hearing from people who have, if they have concerns about noise in, in the parking lot, the back parking lot behind where you're going to locate?
I think whatever you're in a neighborhood, you've got to be cognizant of that there are people that own their homes there. Okay, those the homes are the number one investment that people make, right? So this is a big investment by us. I think that we have been good stewards throughout all of our locations. I think that yes, once in a while things do come up, but the way that this is being designed, where most of the business end of this is on Connecticut Avenue, meaning. The back kitchen door, yes, will be where 5708 comes out back. It will be the existing garbage and everything that goes on over there. We have talked to the landlord about enclosing all of that and making sure that is sightly, which I think is a big thing for neighbors. But I understand you're talking about the noise levels. I think restaurants in general seem to turn down a little bit earlier than they used to, and I think that operators are a little more cognizant of the neighborhood restaurant and the feel to be within somebody's neighborhood, rather than, oh, well, this is in the middle of the city, I'll make as much noise and such as possible. I think we are going to run into, as with anything with the parking, how we mitigate that and how we, for lack of a better term, police it, but validate the parking, whether it's parking attendants and things like that, to make sure that, that we are using the parking lot to our advantage, but also not to the disadvantage of the people that live behind us. I know that one of the main concerns when I was going to do South, a neighborhood emailed me, and maybe they're on here, about please don't put neon signs up. We are not a neon sign company, so I think that will be good. I know that there will be lighting back there, but I think that what we do is we use gooseneck lighting that is toned down on the property rather than ever being incredibly out of a property. If anybody recognizes what I'm saying, I think there's a lot of places that shine their lights and like it's a beacon. We will work with the neighborhood and the people to make sure that that's not a problem. We also have restaurants in Nantucket, Massachusetts, which is a very sensitive area. I have 3 locations up there that I've opened. And I actually operated one of the busiest ones for 6 years. And that became a concern is, you know, after the parking lot at nighttime, the lights were disturbing them. We came to a solution with them, and we worked with our neighbors quite well.
All right, I'm set. Are other commissioners set?
Just one thing that raises up to me all the time about restaurants is composting instead of trashing so that there's better rodent control. I don't know what your policies are around whether you compost waste, you have sealed compost bins, or whether you're just trashing it, and that's an issue that I get a lot of emails from, even though it's not my district, but they see them and they get a little bit scared.
I do not compost. I'm not going to tell you that I do. It's not something that I think that I won't look into if that becomes an issue. The trash hauling at a full service restaurant would be 6 days a week. We do follow all guidelines we try not to waste as much food as possible, but I do hear you, and that would be something I would have to talk to the other owners and to my operating chef about.
Okay, if you could do that. And then the last thing is, on this commission, there's been a lot of conversation about the chemical, the forever chemicals, PFAS chemicals, which are found in lots of products. It arose with us originally on turf fields, but it exists in a lot of food packaging stuff. And so again, along the same lines of composting, if you could think about what your takeaway containers look like, whether they are compostable when home as opposed to plastic, because PFAS is, as we've identified in this community, a growing issue. So if you could be sensitive to that, that would be appreciated also.
I'm actually glad you brought that up. If you've ever been to the places that we do all pulp containers, which are fully compostable. And we do, because of our sensitivities to our branded stuff, that are branded products, we do all of our branded products at the same, because on Nantucket, we are not allowed to have anything that's non-compostable. So even the plastics that we use for the lids and everything are a compostable plastic.
Okay. Plastic is hardly compostable, but paper is better, and wood spoons are better than compostable plastic.
Okay.
So if you could be forward thinking on that, that would be welcomed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and with that,
yeah, no styrofoam ever. I'm big proponent of that. So
yeah, if you just live by the Nantucket standards, then we'll be fine, right?
we've adopted, which is actually not even the DC laws. There are some things that have to be in certain containers, but we've adopted most of the Nantucket laws, because we do so much branding of our products, that we have them all made to the standard that Nantucket is very sensitive to what the gentleman was just speaking to.
Good.
With that, you wrap it up and move.
I also have celiac, so be careful about gluten and dairy.
You're going to be fine with us.
Good.
Right. For that, thank you, Eamon.
And we've settled all of my personal problems.
Thank you, Eamon. Thank you, Commissioner Gosselin. Appreciate the discussion. We're going to move forward with the agenda and turn to, again, Commissioner Gosselin along with Commissioner Sherman to discuss the update on the ANC's authority to enter into agreements. Some of this has been posted publicly, but I think we should definitely give the community a full update of where we stand with OANC. Which just transpired, the cancellation of the meeting this past week, and then where we are with the meeting with the OAG.
Let me start, if you will, Bruce. This issue, the broad issue here of our ANC and all ANCs' authority to make certain kinds of agreements has percolated in this ANC since the very beginning of this commission's term in 2023. At the behest, I believe, of Commissioner Sherman, Chair Gore asked the Attorney General for its view on this, and received a memo, a letter, an opinion, I believe in April of
February 23.
of 2023. And the OAG's view was that we do not have the authority to enter into agreements like contracts, memos of understandings, community benefit agreements, and so on and so forth. The matter sat there until this last summer when, well, there's been an argument, the commissioners here have argued about this ever since, and I can recite what my views are on the subject to the extent I understand the law. But the picture was substantially complicated this September when the Office of the ANCs, the agency that oversees us and all ANCs, issued a legal memo saying that ANCs do have the right to enter into certain kinds of agreements. We sought a meeting with OANC to discuss their opinion and with OAG. We thought we had a meeting with OANC, but they canceled it the day of the session last Thursday. OAG says it's willing to meet with us in executive session to discuss legal matters, discuss this memo. And we are still trying to settle on a date, probably next week. We need to get it settled soon so that we can put out a public announcement, but that's where we stand right now. Bruce.
Yeah, so I would, for the benefit of the public, just want to add to what Commissioner Gosselin is saying as to why this matters, why we're talking about it. What do we understand thus far from the OANC and the OAG as to our authorities to enter these agreements? And I'll just simply say that there are a couple of things. In the first instance, looking forward to a point in time when, if the Civic Corps redevelopment takes place, it could very well be the case that the community writ large would want to have some type of an agreement in place to safeguard neighbors' interests during the construction. That's what led, in fact, to the current MOU with Murray School that the ANC believed, the community believed there needed to be in place a memorandum of understanding to address construction issues and then operation issues. So agreements like this can serve communities to safeguard the interest of the neighbors. And ANCs can or cannot, depending upon the decisions of the ANCs, play a role. But if they can, then we obviously need to understand how to structure these agreements to be within the law. And that's what, in part, we've been discussing with the OANC, getting their guidance, getting the guidance from the Office of the Attorney General. So there is the prospective concern if, in fact, going down the road, we'd want to do another agreement like this, a community benefit agreement, a memorandum of understanding. And then, of course, there is the current circumstance that we actually have such an agreement in place now with Murray School for the construction and operation of their athletic fields at the Episcopal Center for Children. And in fact, that agreement and what we are allowed to do or not allowed to do under that is what this past summer we explored in some depth and detail with regard to our ability to ask Murray School to use natural grass instead of artificial turf. And that engendered a series of queries to the OAG that Michael Zeldin began and to the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions to ask what we were allowed to do under the agreement. Did we have the authority to direct Murray to do one thing or another? In effect, are the agreements legally binding, and does the ANC have any enforcement authority? So we're in the midst of addressing all of these matters right now, trying to get clarity from both the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions and the Office of the Attorney General. And what complicates the circumstance further is that the two offices have differing views on selected legal issues, and there is more fundamentally the matter of which office has primacy in providing interpretation of statute for ANCs. Most recently, the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions has asserted an authority that I believe it's fair to say was new to all of us. Certainly it was new to me in their ability to interpret statute for ANCs. The Office of the Attorney General has, for its part, indicated that it remains the primary source of that interpretation, the very narrow piece of interpreting statute for ANCs. And when we say interpreting statute, that means simply what we're able to do under the law or not able to do. One thing that I would mention to the community to try to demystify this a bit is that the current DC code establishes, and I think most people understand this, that ANCs are advisory bodies in the law. We have no other stated authority. We don't have a stated regulatory authority. We're advisory. And that constrains activities that we can undertake in terms of executing agreements and contracts in which there is implied or required some measure of enforcement. So there are issues related to what our enforcement authorities are. There are issues related to what our authorities are to do these agreements in the first place. And we're in the process of sorting all that out with the Advisory Neighborhood, Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions and the Office of the Attorney General. Colleagues on the commission, is that a relatively fair articulation of what you understand we're looking at and currently addressing?
Not to me, it is not. No.
Let me go to Commissioner
And
Nash.
here's what I have never understood about this discussion. MOUs are not legally enforceable, as I understand it. That is what distinguishes an MOU from a contract. So if the MOU is not legally enforceable, then when it comes to Murray, what are we even talking about here?
Well, Commissioner Nash, I think that's the crux of the matter in many respects. I'll let others weigh in before going into further depth and detail from my side.
I don't care whether the ANC does it or Joe Blow does it. An MOU is never legally enforceable, as I understand it. So I don't see why the issue even comes up.
Well,
I just say, Jim, I think it comes up at least in part because this discussion looks beyond the particular MOU that has been so controversial among this set of commissioners over 2 years. We are headed into a serious new issue around the next stage of where redevelopment of the community center library goes. And if we turn out to be going into that issue with no tools whatsoever, with no ability to make community benefit agreements, with no ability to agree to MOUs, with no ability other than to advise municipal agencies, that's a really different story of what we can do than I had understood for the 4 years I've been on this commission. So the issue goes well beyond the specifics of the Murray MOU.
Okay, so we're not talking about MOUs then when we talk about something that's legally enforceable. What then are we talking about that could be legally enforceable? What would that be? A contract?
Well, the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, Commissioner Nash has identified, in their view, provisions that a contract, a community benefit agreement, they even use the term MOU, as you are aware, in their legal guidance to us. But what the provisions would need to be for such a contract to be enforceable, the important point here is that that contract, MOU, community benefit agreement, would not be enforceable by the ANC because ANCs have no regulatory enforcement authority. It would be enforceable, and this is where it gets into infinite detail, which we might not want to go into tonight, other provisions that could be built into such an agreement to allow for its enforceability. So we can talk further about that. Let me come back though, so that anyone listening to this understands the issue and what the OAG said in February 2023 and then reiterated in July and reiterated again in October. And that is that an ANC only has authority to do a legally binding agreement if that agreement is incorporated into an official DC agency order. So in the case of Murray, the MOU that the ANC authored, if it had been incorporated in full into the order issued by the BZA approving Murray's application for its zoning relief, then it would be considered as the term of art, a settlement agreement to that, and would be enforceable by the BZA. And because again, ANCs don't have enforcement authority, but the MOU was not incorporated in full, as you know. Provisions, substantial provisions were incorporated. Those provisions are enforceable because they're part of the order from the BZA by the BZA or by district government agencies. The one thing that I would mention to the public and to fellow commissioners here is that the circumstance of the MOU with Murray regarding the construction of the fields is a live circumstance. It's happening now. The construction is taking place. It's a day in, day out proposition. And since it's in my single member district, I, more than any other member of the commission, of course, deal with it on a daily basis with respect to neighbor concerns. And therefore, limitations of enforceability affect my own dealing with neighbors as they seek relief or redress for problems they've experienced. And currently, as everyone knows, I think on the commission, maybe the broader public is not aware, there have been daily noticeable, discernible vibrations from the compacting of soil that's going on the property and has been going on for the better part of this year that has rattled people's homes on a fairly regular basis. In fact, there are reports in some homes of some cracking that needs to be determined if it's structural or merely aesthetic. We had an inspection last week on that score, and a follow-on to that, the Department of Buildings issued a stop work order that has now been lifted, but was in effect for a few days. So this is a circumstance that I deal with every single day, and the enforcement of it is something that's left to the citizens, the neighbors that I help them with in terms of going to district agencies. But there is no enforcement that we can apply as an ANC under the MOU. So just to make all that clear to everyone.
Right. Although Bruce, I would add two things.
Hang on a minute, Michael. Let me go to Commissioner Ferguson. He had his hand raised.
Sorry, I couldn't see that.
Okay. Yeah, just one thing I want to add is, certainly this ANC has been getting information from OAG, from OANC on these issues. I think that's absolutely correct. What I think is worth noting is we've never come together to, I've seen all the back and forth and internal emails about how commissioners view these things. And I'd say you ask 7 commissioners their views, you get 7 different answers. We aren't in a unified position on, at any point in these 2 years. So maybe one day we might have a resolution where we all come together and agree on the abstract, how do ANCs enter into agreements or similar things. But just so the community knows, I think until we have a resolution like that, right now, you probably have 7 commissioners with 7 varying views of different kinds.
Yep. Commissioner Zeldin.
So Bruce, thank you. I thought that was a very fair summary. The only little thing I would say in respect of the interpretation of statutes, what the OANC says is they're authorized to give us legal advice. That's why they were created on a broad range of matters, including FOIA. And what they say, as any lawyer would say, is I can't give you legal advice if I can't interpret the statute that governs this area. So OAG, they say, saying that only they can interpret a statute undermines the authority of the OANC to give legal advice if legal advice can't be based on statutory interpretation. So it's, it's sort of legal nuanced, but that's how they say, of course we can interpret statutes. You can't give legal advice without it. And the other point I wanted to make is that even if unenforceable, an MOU or CBA at least puts the parties in agreement on how to proceed, and they can, as a matter of that contract, if you'll be not enforceable necessarily in court, but each side meets, agrees to terms as they did in the Connecticut Avenue, 5330, whatever number it is, and this to provide a mechanism for the two sides to communicate with one another. So the value of it is, even if it's unenforceable, the fact that it creates a structure for the two sides of an agreement to be talking and have, you know, a working agreement on what to proceed, how to proceed, I think adds value, irrespective, Jim Nash, of its enforceability in court. It's, you know, sort of the old, we shake hands, we have a gentleman's agreement. You might not be able to sue me over it, but we, you know, if we act in good faith, we act according to the terms of the agreement. That's, so there's a value in it.
Thank you. Good.
Commissioner Gosselin.
Let me just add on to what Michael said. One of the great advantages of operating at this hyperlocal level in a community is that it matters what people say to each other and the agreements they make and the honor they show in living up to those agreements. And so at some level, in some cases, it's a boogeyman to say, well, is it legally enforceable? There are many things in the Murray MOU that I think Murray ought to be held in honor to continue to support, including among them the agreement to negotiate away, give back the Jello fields. Whether it is enforceable or might be an issue if we were playing this game at the district level, at a state or regional level, at the federal level. But the advantage that we should foster of operating in a community is that people make agreements, and if they don't honor them, they are lesser in the eyes of their fellow community members.
Something that I'd like to mention that is relevant for the future, and that is that in the annals of ANC history, there have been several other instances in which agreements like an MOU have been put into place to govern the construction of a fairly large facility. So going back to 2014 in the Ingleside case, then going back all the way to 2004 in the Knollwood expansion case. And in the history, and I've had an opportunity to look into this, and since Knollwood is a constituent property and a constituent institution of mine with 250 residents, I've taken a very active interest and have been able to secure the agreements that were done in 2004 between Knollwood and Knollwood Neighbors, a community organization that formed at the time that Knollwood was doing its expansion to represent the interest of the neighbors. And in that particular circumstance, as opposed to the ANC doing an agreement, Knollwood Neighbors executed an agreement, which I've seen, with Knollwood that the ANC then blessed in making its recommendation to the Board of Zoning Adjustment that it approved the special exception application that Knollwood filed then in 2004. So we have this as an antecedent experience, an antecedent and important, I think, example of a independent community organization working with the ANC, but the ANC not stepping in and taking an active role in executing the agreement itself. Then we have the Ingleside case, which was the antecedent to the Murray MOU, and that was done by the ANC. The thing that we have to keep in mind here, and the public may not know all of this, and it gets into lots of detail. I won't go into all depth and detail on it now, but because of statutory limitations and the lack of enforcement, we cannot, as an ANC, do things like active compliance monitoring of a facility for enforcement of prospective violations of provisions of an agreement. We can't levy fines, for example. In the Ingleside case, the ANC levied $216,700 in fines, and then donated those funds to 17 charities in amounts ranging from a couple thousand to $23,000. That type of activity is prescribed by law. We can't do that. The ANC couldn't do it then, but it did. And in some respects, well, not in some respects, in many respects, that antecedent experience informed the Murray MOU, which we also know has provisions that contravene statute, and got us into a place where we've had a number of issues related to the implementation of the current MOU because it is not compliant with DC code. So when we look back in time, my point is we have various antecedent experiences we can draw on as we think going forward as to what we'd like to do ourselves, and of course we can do by way of guidance from the attorneys at the Attorney General's office and at the Advisory Neighborhood Commission office.
Commissioner Nash. You're on mute.
I did not mean in my question to disparage the value of MOUs, Commissioner Gosselin and Zeldin. My comment was that I did not understand why we got into the whole enforceability question at all with respect to MOUs. It was a narrower thing. I do see the value of MOUs, and I don't, just because something is not enforceable doesn't mean it has no value. I didn't mean to imply that. That's all.
I would just add that I know, Bruce, you talk about, the agreements that are on behalf of this ANC. Commissioners across, this is an issue that just does not impact ANC 34G. This impacts commissioners all across the city. Commissions have been entering into community benefit agreements since they have probably been formed. They have been entering into those agreements for multiple years, way before 2004. And you will find all types of concessions for the community in those agreements. Some enforceable, some not. I know there is a community benefit agreement in 8D that was just entered into where a community organization was able to get, several $100,000s. So there's all sorts of nuances to this discussion. I am not in line with the OAG's opinion. I'm favorable to the OANC's opinion because that's what's been happening across this city way longer than we've been in our commission roles and doing this job. It's been going on in the city for years. I would love to hear from both agencies. I hope OANC meets with us, and I'm looking forward to the discussion with OAG. I do believe this is probably something that we'll have to go and discuss with the council. I would encourage the commission to think about this when we do performance oversight testimony. This would be a really good topic to bring up and discuss how this has been handled with OANC and OAG. We could do performance oversight on both. And that's an opportunity for us to actually talk with the council and get their feedback and the opinion and let them know how this has impacted this commission. But I don't think there's, something that we're going to settle tonight. I think we've given the community a good overview of what we're dealing with this issue. All the commissioners that spoke have really talked and have done an excellent job with discussing the nuances of the issue and the topic. So my hope and the takeaway is that the community knows that it's a complex issue. We have two legal authorities in the District of Columbia basically giving us different legal advice. And the commission has got to proceed with caution when we're, discussing this. So that's just my comments. Any more commissioner or community comments?
I just want to say, Lisa, that I think that, and I've mentioned this in some of our email exchanges, and that is that for the benefit of the community, we can go about this a couple of different ways. And I'm looking ahead now, thinking at what we might do next. And that, given that both the OANC and the OAG agree, they do agree on this, I think we're all clear, that we do not have this regulatory enforcement authority, which then necessitates, again, crafting an agreement, if the ANC is doing it, with great precision to allow for some measure of enforceability. Otherwise, an agreement that can't be enforced is an agreement that at some level is not worth doing, because disputes inevitably arise. And a handshake is a great thing, but it's not going to get the job done when there are disputes. And there are disputes right now that I'm myself managing. So as I say, this is a daily matter for me and for my neighbors. So we could think about going forward, doing again what I mentioned happened in the Knollwood case, and I would like us to take a deeper look at that. And I'll share the documents because I think it's a good circumstance, it's a good instance to look at. The other thing that I would say, and I think it's super important, and that is that whatever we do, we have to be within our statutory guidelines. We have to operate within statute. And we've had the circumstance of that not being the case with the Ingleside example and the Murray example, and we have to benefit from that experience going forward. So I think that's also important for us to bear in mind.
I'd like
Yeah, I mean, I think, whatever the ANC does going forward will be, hopefully under the guidance and advice of OANC and OAG. I mean, I'm not going to say something that is not enforceable is not worthwhile. We have probably thousands of examples in this District of Columbia where ANCs have entered into CBAs, MOUs, whatever you want to call it, that had probably no legal provision of enforcement that has greatly benefited the community. I don't think anyone probably on this line would say that the CBA that 8D entered into that got a community organization, over $100,000 wasn't worth the entry. So that's your perspective. I hope, I respect that. I hope you respect my perspective. And, the incoming commission will have to deal with that and deal through that as we go. We're not going to solve it here tonight.
So I think we are.
That's for sure. Commissioner Gosselin.
I think we ought to wrap it up. I was just going to point out that besides Commissioner Sherman managing the issues during the construction, I think the task force that was created in tandem with the MOU has played a role as well.
But here's the thing about that, Peter, and I agree that the task force has been channeling the concerns that neighbors have had to Murray, but it, like the commission, has no enforcement authority. So on a practical day-to-day matter, when the Department of Buildings is involved, and the Department of Energy and Environment is involved, and the Department of Health is involved, and Urban Forestry is involved, as they all have been, with concerns and disputes of the neighbors, which I know none of you is involved in directly every day. I am, but it's been my responsibility to represent the neighbors just as the commissioner here, not because I have any authority to do it either. But we shouldn't be deceived by thinking that because there is a structure in place, a task force, that there is something happening more than conveying to Murray and its contractors what the issues are. Because the task force is not on the ground every day interfacing with District of Columbia agencies to address the concerns of neighbors. I do that. And so it's just that's just a reality of the circumstance. The last thing I would say, commissioners, is that I did a draft resolution, which I will recirculate, asking for clarity on the matter of which office, the OANC, the OAG, is to provide interpretation of statute and our authorities under statute for the ANCs. That's not something that the OANC and the OAG, as far as I can tell, are going to come to terms themselves on. And so we're here left with the circumstance that we have competing, somewhat conflicting legal advice. And at the end of the day, the council, someone's going to have to make a decision which office provides the lead for us. So I have drafted a resolution on that.
Yeah, and the thing is on that, Bruce, is that just to elucidate the point is nobody, when you drafted it, nobody disagreed with the need for it. the thing that there was some disagreement on was, do we wait until we hear from OANC and OAG as they promised to talk to us? They've somehow somewhat reneged. So we knew how best to draft that language, or do we go ahead and do it, hear from them, and then if they tell us something that requires change, to do a
Yeah.
change? That was,
No,
so it's just, so from from my point of view, I said, I agree with you. We need clarity, but let's hear from them and then draft. So it was just a chicken and egg sort of thing.
I understand.
Can we wrap this up?
Yeah, I gotta go also.
Okay, commissioners, thank you for this discussion. We will definitely have this on the agenda until we get it settled. So this is just one of many discussions that we're going to have on this topic. So next on the agenda, Commissioner Ferguson, discussion and possible vote on a resolution regarding disruptive overnight construction by DC Water and its contractors. And I don't think there's much controversy over Commissioner Ferguson's resolution. So, Commissioner Ferguson, if you can just introduce it, we'll see if there's commissioner or community comments. But if we can get this passed, within like a few minutes, let's do that, commissioners. I think this is a pretty well done resolution that's non-controversial.
Sure. So for some background, if you're not aware, there was extensive overnight construction on Connecticut Avenue, mostly in, I think, my single member district, between Military and Chevy Chase Parkway. This is part of a much larger capital improvement project by DC Water's undertaking that's it's replacing the 12-inch and smaller water mains in our city. This is going to take, I understand, decades. So I think this resolution, even though we hope that most of the overnight heavy machinery work is done, they're still testing chlorine levels and testing some things, but it does seem like the heavy work is over for now. But it might come to your SMD next year. It's just an ongoing project across the city. And the issues really were a lack of communication between not just DC Water and the ANC, but also affected neighbors. A lack of understanding of why the work was being done the way it was being done. Could the nighttime work be shifted to the daytime? There was problems. They would make promises about, limiting the loudest work at, ended at 11 p.m. They didn't stick to that. And I want to note that I hope to change the resolution a bit, because this was written a couple weeks ago. And since then, Councilmember Fruimn's been visiting the site when there was construction repeatedly, really pressing DC Water for improvement. And he held a community meeting with DC Water. And so my resolution was written before that. So I want to change it to reflect that the meeting happened and focus more on future notice and communication going forward. Again, I think this will be useful, even if this stretch of Connecticut Avenue is done. I think this resolution will be useful for in the future when DC Water pursues this type of work, and getting them accustomed to better notice and communication and flexibility with neighbors.
Commissioner Sherman.
Yeah, so Zach, so the memo, the resolution is written in the present tense, present progressive, really, as you're articulating. It's happening now. So are you indicating that you would substantially change it to be more of a general statement that DC Water needs to engage better with ANCs?
No, the project is still underway.
Okay.
It actually sent their update last week. They're doing some other things. So, and that's part of the issue, is often this work is weather dependent. So they often kept telling us, a few more days of work and it'll be over. But to be fair to them, they can't control the weather, and the project kept getting extended, and it continues. I think the issues persist. I still don't know when this project will be formally complete. There's a lot of side projects. I think they work on the side streets on smaller. You can look at TOPS and see all kinds of permits. It's not just one big permit. There's lots of smaller projects that they're going. So I think there won't be any substantive changes to the resolution, but just except for that Councilmember Fruimn meeting, that it's past tense. But otherwise, I think it'd be kept the same.
Okay. I strongly support a resolution that would put DC Water on notice to advise in advance of projects that are going to happen in our ANC. So if there's any need to strengthen any part of the resolution currently, if you think it says that sufficiently now, that's fine. But that's, for me, the primary issue is you identify, we wouldn't want this to take place again someplace else in our ANC where all of a sudden they show up and start drilling at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take that as a friendly amendment. And you know, I sent this around a little while ago, so you know, I'm open to any ways to make this resolution stronger. So I can add a few lines explaining, you know, emphasizing that this isn't just for this recent work, but all work going forward, especially late night construction.
Okay, and if there's anything else, commissioners, that we need to do with either Councilmember Fruimn or Louis George, or directly reaching out to the city with respect to Public Service Commission, what have you, where utilities are concerned when they don't give us notice. Washington Gas has undertaken gas line repairs on McKinley Place forever. And they've just marked up the pavement again. And the neighbors just are beside themselves trying to understand why they can't fix this and why there's no advance notice and so forth and so on. So this is a huge problem, frankly.
Commissioner Ferguson, I mean,
Gosselin. I'm Gosselin. Yeah, I want to add to Bruce's suggestion. So recently I have received multiple door hangers. I think this is not with about digging up pipes, but flushing lines. The problem with door hangers, I think we need to say that DC Water needs to improve its public notice. I mean, these were received 48 hours in advance of the actual flushing. But I think that one of the problems is that notification is disaggregated. So any one person picks it up and says, oh, you know, I got to run my bathtub, fill it with water for 4 hours. But there needs to be a better notification at the community level, to us, to the affected council member, somehow, so that the area, the affected area is more clearly delineated, because just door hangers leaves the notification completely disaggregated. So any one person might be an activist citizen and start calling around and putting something on the listserv and so on and so forth. So I just wonder if, along with Bruce's friendly amendment, or Bruce's suggestion, which you're taking as a friendly amendment, you would add, you know, the notification should include the delineated area, the affected area being delineated, and the notice should go to AMCs and to council members of the affected areas, so that there's some aggregated notification. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that. Because yeah, I think an issue here is a lack of ANC. You know, I don't know what the council members get, but certainly ANCs are not in the loop. Anyone can go look at the TOPS website and you just see hundreds probably. And, you know, we're certainly not getting our emails pinged with hundreds of permits. So there's just a lot we're not in the loop on. And, you know, but yeah, I accept your friendly amendment.
Any other comments from commissioners? Community members? Okay, we're running in time on this one. Commissioner Ferguson, do you want to move this into acceptance?
Yeah, I move to, with the friendly amendments from Commissioners Sherman and Gosselin, to move to approve this resolution.
I second. Commissioners, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. That is unanimous, 6-0-0. Commissioner Zeldin is offline. Okay. I just want to thank Commissioner Ferguson for his work on this. Also, if Councilmember Fruimn's staff is still on, to thank him as well. The meeting with DC Water was eye-opening. A lot of the things that you guys have raised was raised in that meeting. Councilmember Fruimn, I could tell you, really fought for the community in that meeting. DC Water and its contractor there's, we don't have real oversight of them, and it was extremely disappointing. I think the response that we got. We're lucky to have Councilmember Fruimn pushing the issue, because I think it would have been even worse for the community. But Zach did get a lot of good information, and I think his resolution is a good one, and the amendments that are added to it will help it along. Hopefully the commission keeps a hold of this and continue to press the issue with DC Water, so we can get some resolution, because you're right, it's not just this project. It's other commission project or other projects in the commission area and throughout the city where this is occurring. And it's been extremely disruptive for the community. So thank you everybody for pushing on this issue, and definitely thank you really for the community members that posted this on a listserv. And we did not know, because one of the things that was said, and we talked about this with DC Water, they did not notify the ANC. We had no idea that this work was going on, the nighttime construction permit. And this should just not occur where a permit is issued at nighttime for this type of work and it does not come through ANC approval. It just shouldn't happen. So thanks for the community for bringing this to our attention as well.
And I just mention one thing, since it is a public meeting and I have a good relationship with Emmanuel Briggs at DC Water, their public engagement person. He's generally very responsive to questions I have, instances when water service has been cut for whatever reason, there's been a water main break or what have you. He's been very good, and I've been in regular touch with him, which is kind of further mystifying why the advance notice of major work like this doesn't happen. So anyway.
Yeah, Emmanuel he's been very responsive. His responsiveness is not, the topic, it's their policy and procedure. They just don't have a policy and procedure that inserts ANCs into that approval process. And I think some of it, I didn't see the community member here online, but some of it was, maybe his office misinformed the community and actually said that the ANC was notified. And, we challenged him on that.
Right.
We were not notified.
Right.
So, and he discussed during that meeting that this is not their policy and procedure to give us notification on those nighttime projects. So they have some work to do, but I think Zach's resolution really lays out some really concrete steps that they could take. On Emmanuel's credit, he said he would take that up with DC Water. So we just have to wait and see if they implement the suggestions.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, commissioners. So we'll move on to the next one, Commissioner Ferguson. And Commissioner Ferguson, you did not tell the community that you have a new addition to the family. I'm trying to get to your stuff quickly because he became a dad again. You want to tell the community your big news?
We have another member of SMD 07. Very excited. A lot of diapers, not a lot of sleep over here. Very thankful for my wife and mother-in-law right now so I can attend this meeting. But yes, very excited. Really love this community. And, we have so many wonderful neighbors and families here and really excited to add one more to the bunch.
All right. I just wanted to let folks know. So I knew, that's why I'm trying to speed through your stuff so you can get back to being dad. So discussion and possible vote on a resolution advising the mayor and the council to respect the will of the voters regarding Initiative 83. This is, again, Commissioner Ferguson.
Yeah, so this resolution is quite short. You might see this other ANCs do this, every 2 or 4 years, you might see these type of ballot initiatives. And it's, the voters get a chance to weigh in on a single issue and tell the council and the mayor what they think. We got the results have not been certified. We don't know, final exact numbers, but we do know that with what we've seen so far, it looks like Initiative 83 is on track to win not only every ward, but every precinct. It's very popular citywide. That doesn't, I think right now it's about 73% of voters across the city have voted yes. And in the resolution, I break that down by precincts. We don't know exactly which SMD voted exactly for what, but we do know which Ward 3 and Ward 4, how they voted. We know the precincts our voters are at. So we have some idea. But of course, it's, it's all between 68% and 78% yes. So here in this resolution, I'm not trying to get the ANC to say, is this good or bad or otherwise? It's really just echoing what the voters said on election day about this issue, and just reminding the council that, this is what our ANC or, our voters said in precincts 51, those precincts. And here's what it's the same as what the city said, more or less. And we urge them to respect the will of the voters. So it's very simple. It doesn't get into the weeds. I didn't feel like that was appropriate. It's really about keeping the focus on the election results.
And Commissioner Ferguson, do you want to go over the friendly amendment that you accepted? We have your
Sure.
original draft, and then we have the second draft on the website.
Sure. So I sent around a first draft. I got some feedback. I incorporated some comments. One concern was, there was some language in there about, setting aside a modest amount to fund the initiative. The voters voted for it. They think they want it funded. But, some people have questions about budget uncertainty, budget priorities. So, I didn't want this to be a whole side issue where you don't feel like you can vote for this if you're not comfortable with the budget situation. So again, I dropped the budget language and some other a few lines, and even just narrowed it even more, keeping the focus on the election results.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gosselin.
I just wanted to say to Zach, thank you for narrowing it. I can vote for this because I'm reading this as simply asking the municipal government to honor the will of the voters. I have immense doubts myself about ranked choice voting, except in races where there are many candidates. But you've made this so that it is essentially a call to honor the will of the people, and I'm fine with that. So thank you.
And I would just comment on, piggybacking what Commissioner Gosselin said. Thank you, Zach, because I had the concerns regarding some of the language, narrowing it to the will of the voters and the budget, issues. So thank you. And I know you're winding your term down for always being willing to listen to feedback and to incorporate, to get this commission to, the 7-0 vote, which sends the strongest message that we could send. So I'm definitely in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
And just to speak to anyone who might have voted no, I mean, if it gives you any comfort, first of all, these resolutions get no great weight. The council never gives ANC's great weight. And, I think this has happened probably before. I wasn't, we had the other initiatives on the ballot. The council and mayor have, I think, ignored the voters or, just didn't implement it. So I don't think a single ANC resolution is going to tip the scales. It's just trying to speak up for our voters where we can, but being realistic, I think, about what impact that makes.
Zach, I think that's an important clarification for people in terms of understanding resolutions that would merit great weight and ones that wouldn't, just to differentiate between the two.
Yeah, so I've become a believer in great weight mythology. So that's supposed to be the tool of the ANCs is certain times. It's only for certain resolutions. And basically the city has to propose something to us. It can't be these unsolicited proposals we give them. That never gets great weight. But even when the city does propose something and they say, here's our proposal, they're required to give us a written response that addresses with particularity and precision our issues. I love if anyone could find a single document that meets that standard. I've never seen it. So I've never seen the city give us great weight on any issue. But it is useful for residents to know, just in theory, what issues get great weight and what don't. And there's a whole, if you're interested in the subject, the DC auditor released a great report on why which agencies are very bad at this, of giving ANCs great weight, and which are maybe a little bit better. But in my experience, they've all been, they're either unaware or don't care about the great weight provision in the statute. Something I've been working on, but I'm sure it's going to be an ongoing thing for every ANC.
Yeah, I do think, as an aside, that it would be helpful to take a look, and commissioners who have more experience in this could be our guides on resolutions that have been passed by the commission that have had impact, and what the circumstances were around the impact, even if it was not a matter of great weight. But given the circumstances and given the resolution and the alignment of factors in play, the work of the ANC produced a tangible outcome. That's helpful in terms of thinking about how to direct our efforts and where to spend our limited time and energy, so that we do that in the most productive way possible.
Yeah, I would just, piggyback on that. From what I've seen, it's not necessarily a particular subject matter or agency or but how the ANC works with those agencies, the council or whoever we're trying to influence. It's the influence of the ANC, and I cannot stress enough the unanimity in a vote and the ideas coming out of the ANC having the greatest probably possible impact of that. Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking to this very topic when I get to my Transportation Committee report. But what I have learned in my 2 years here on the commission is that passing an ANC resolution is not the end of the work. It is the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If you want to have any impact, and that the impact will be also based on the strength of your argument and your reason. Okay, that's it.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions on this resolution? Any community comments on the resolution? Commissioner Ferguson, you want to move?
Sure, I move that the ANC adopt this resolution advising the mayor and DC council to respect the will of the voters in ANC 34G and across the district regarding Initiative 83.
As amended.
As amended, yes.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, commissioners, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 600. Thank you, pass. Okay. So Commissioner Ferguson, now we're going into your transportation resolutions. And in order, I have the increase in WMATA funding, then the daylighting and the bike, protected bike lane resolution. I will allow you to adjust that order any way you want. I think maybe we still have about 48 people online. I think the majority of the feedback and the one that's going to be the most discussion prone is the protected bike lanes. So if you want to go easy first, however you want to do that.
The current order is good. So we'll take them one at a time, vote, discuss them one at a time. They're separate things. I will say, just as background, they're all somewhat related. They're transportation or safety related. And I'll say, I sent these around about over 2 months ago to commissioners and the Transportation Committee and said, please share with anyone interested. But what I really wanted was not just, I wrote these resolutions based on conversations I've had with countless people and try to reflect that. But I really wanted people to look at these drafts because, I don't have all the answers. I know the community can make these resolutions stronger. So that's what I did. We discussed it at length at the Transportation Committee. I got good feedback, but really I wanted people to share their, read it, give me line by line edits. I got a lot of great thoughts, ideas, suggestions. And so what I sent around for the publication on the website was an updated drafts of each one. Each one incorporated community feedback of different kinds on each resolution. So they look a little different than the first one. And I'm really grateful. People from all different views gave me helpful thoughts. But we'll start with the bus one. And the reason behind this bus resolution is, as you may know, we've already done, I think, 2 resolutions on bus service directed at WMATA. And in my view, WMATA would love to provide ample bus service to our neighborhood if they had money. Their constraint is funding. And so funding's a bit complicated because it's not just DC funds the buses and that's it. It's, WMATA has multiple jurisdictions funding it. DC is only one of those. But if we really want world-class bus service, we want to avoid, low service, long run times, wait times. We really need to invest in this. And so if you read the resolution, it's about asking the DC Council to increase funding to WMATA for better bus service in DC. And it builds on our previous resolutions. It builds on a lot of the great work by the Transportation Committee on the ANC. And something else I kind of included was I didn't want them to say, okay, we'll cut, funding for police or teachers and we'll pay for buses. We don't want that. So the suggestion is to increase revenue, find new revenue. And, that's hard for ANCs. Revenue is not local. Spending can be very hyper local. Revenue is not. So often we just don't give much advice on revenue. But one suggestion that we discussed in the Transportation Committee and others is, we have over $1.3 billion of unpaid traffic tickets. And that's a lot of potential revenue for great bus service. And I think it's a win-win because if you're right now there's a lot of impunity. You can rack up, there's people with over $100,000 of unpaid traffic tickets. And the message it sends is you can just drive recklessly in DC without much consequence. And so collecting that revenue would, I think, help public safety, would help our roads be safer, and it could fund great bus service. That's an idea, it's just a suggestion. But there's other stuff in the resolution. But this was based on a lot of conversations with people worried about cuts to our bus service and getting it better funded.
Commissioner comments, Commissioner Sherman, Bruce?
Yeah, Zach, could someone read this not knowing much more than superficially what the resolution says and conclude that it could be an argument for increasing people's taxes?
There's many ways to increase revenue. So I don't think personal income tax is the only way to increase revenue. But it's a reality that, just like we vote for things all the time that cost money. And so, you could see that and say, oh, you want to increase my taxes. You're asking for, more expenses of, better spending here and there. We voted for, more funding for education. So I think it's just being realistic that when ANCs ask for better services, that's got to be paid for by someone. And again, my concern here was I didn't want essential services cut. But, I don't think the outcome we want is, okay, we cut teacher funding to pay for better buses.
Right. And not to diminish the significance of making a statement, but just simply recognizing that we are an ANC, one of 46 in the city. Are we shouting out the window here?
I mean, I think you can make a great argument for that for every resolution we entertain. So you're always good.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I don't want to go back to the prior topic of where we have great weight and where we don't. I would say this from my own direct experience, ANC resolutions in matters of zoning are hugely important. And so I think there are issues we could parse in terms of where we have influence and where we don't. But nonetheless, setting that aside, I just asked the question because it seems as though it's a bit of a stretch that we'd have much impact with this.
Yeah, I think if you're coming to the ANCs looking for a lot of impact on anything, again, people can disagree. They can think the ANC is very impactful in some things. Yeah, I think it's more, I think Bruce maybe just sometimes speaking for the community has a value in itself, even if it doesn't change the gears of government, significantly. I think we've heard a lot, I've talked to a lot of people about bus service, and I think there's inherent value in speaking up for people who, in my neighborhood, the L1 is a big loss. And, we could go quietly and never bring it up again if we don't think a resolution is going to change that. But I think it's worth speaking up for better bus service. Others are free to disagree. They might think this is a waste of time and Zoom bandwidth, but I've gotten, and I really encourage commissioners, if you weren't able to attend our transportation committee meeting, there's a lot of really great feedback. And, we've got members for, I think, every SMD, there was members of the public there. So if you didn't attend that meeting, I really encourage you to talk to your SMD citizens who were there and ask them for a sense of the meeting. But I was really glad we have that committee, and they were very positive about, the ones who spoke, were very positive about this resolution.
Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, I want to make 2 points that provide some context to this resolution. One is that I had a conversation with Councilmember Fruimn. I asked him, when will we have dedicated funding for Washington, D.C. metropolitan public transit, which we do not now. I think we may be the only city in America that doesn't have any dedicated funding source for it. And so every year we go through this trauma where, WMATA is going to be cut, and then, we have to go to hearings, and it's a mess. It's a waste of time. Fruimn told me that right now, DC and Maryland are on board to find a dedicated funding source, and they're waiting for a new governor in Virginia and get to have Virginia come on board, because all 3 jurisdictions have to do it together. Okay. And that would be taxes. Okay. But that is something that is already in the works, it would seem. Secondly, though, a reason I support this is we worked really hard in the bus transit working group, as I'll talk about a little later, to get more bus service here. We're constantly asking WMATA, more bus service, more bus service. So it's a matter of consistency. If we want more bus service, we should be talking about, well, how are we going to pay for it? So that context, I think, is an important one. I took the pledge to take buses, only buses, or bike for a week, and I learned a lot. I wish all commissioners would go for a week and get out of their cars and live on the buses. You will see how hard it is to get around on buses if that's what you have to do, and many of your constituents have to do exactly that.
Okay, I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on the, Commissioner Sherman's comment. I think sometimes a lot of things that we do, we feel like we are kind of screaming out the window and nobody's listening. But I do agree with Zach that is one of the things as ANC commissioners we should be doing. I am a big fan of commissioners, and you talked about earlier what we can do to continue to make impact and get across to the council and members of agencies. And this commission has always been known for excellent public oversight, testimony, and budget testimony. So sometimes that feels like you're screaming out the window, but one of the things I would point to is the work that this commission has done on the dilapidated property issue and how long we worked on that, seemingly screaming out the window, to accumulating of actually being on a task force, a committee with Councilmember Mendelson, and actually working on proposed legislation to be passed by the council. So sometimes it's not one commission that's doing the work, and that's why you'll always kind of hear me say, commissioners, follow along and keep this in mind and continue the work, because it might not be our commission term that we get the success. It might be 2 commission terms down the road. But if we don't follow and we don't keep beating the drum, we're not going to get any impact. I was at an event this weekend with a council member that was urging, and this was a private event where they were urging participating in public testimony and oversight on a piece of legislation that's coming down the pike. This week, I'm going to be working with OAG and community members on Connecticut Avenue at another meeting where we're going to be working on the legislation that's coming down the pike that OAG and couple council members introduced for public safety on Connecticut Avenue. So when I look at this bus transportation issue, I look at that in the same vein. I picked this up from the commissioner that was before me. My community in ANC 34G01, we are the most impacted by lack of bus service. I'm the furthest out from, the core of Chevy Chase. And when they changed that E6 route, it did a lot of damage to our community. But we kept beating that drum, and Jim will tell the community, and I'm not going to steal his thunder, we've had a hell of an impact with WMATA and the board. And I'll let Jim announce that. But it is things like this where we have to continue to build upon that work, keep putting in the community examples, keep testifying, and keep getting in the DC Council space about making these impacts. So I think any resolution that speaks to the harm or impacts of our community is worth us doing and worth us continuing to raise the issue. So that's where we have to be strong, because it does get tiring and it does feel like you're screaming out that window, but that's what we got to do for the community. So I just wanted to add that in there. I support the resolutions.
One addition is one of the feedback I got from community members was someone said, hey, you should share these with our neighboring ANC's transportation committee. They have, equivalent different names, but so I think they said, share it with 3C and 3F. I think 3F is Van Ness below us. And I sent it there, and it was, some resolution, these are all a little bit specific to neighborhoods. Maybe the visibility one's probably the least specific to any neighborhood, but there was a lot of interest, and I think that it's on their agendas. I haven't been following as closely. I've been a little busy, but I think we might be seeing other ANCs passing similar resolutions. So it might not just be a single one. It might grow as more ANCs share what they're dealing with and how they're reacting.
Yeah. Any other commissioner comments? Any community comments? Okay. Zach, do you want to move this motion?
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone who shared feedback and gave me edits and suggestions first. But yes, I move to approve this resolution recommending DC Council increase WMATA funding through new revenue for improved bus service.
And I'd like to have the privilege of seconding it.
There's a second. Commissioners, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 600. Thank you. Resolution passed. Okay, next resolution, Zach, daylighting.
Sure. So this is called increased daylighting intersection visibility. So daylighting is a bit of a technical term. I'll try to explain it. And it's basically when you're going up to an intersection, if you're in a car and you can't see around the corner, and you find yourself creeping up and up trying to see so you can safely cross the street. That's why it's really important to have daylight. So you want to have good visibility. It's the same for people if you're walking or bicycling. You want to be able to see cars coming, and cars want to be able to see you. That makes our intersections safer. A good example of this in our neighborhood, you might have noticed, is the Starbucks on Connecticut Avenue. That Starbucks in Chevy Chase. It is illegal under current DC law. Like most cities, it's been this way a long time. You cannot park right at the intersection. That's very dangerous. It impedes sight lines. So that's just illegal. There's a sign there saying, you can park that way, but you can't park this close to the intersection. At Starbucks, what we see all the time, I've got pictures of this. People would park illegally. They'd walk into the Starbucks, get their coffee. I'd see this even when there was an open spot, 3 spots away. People would just, they parked there. They knew DPW's not ticketing. There's really, even if you got a ticket, you don't have to pay it really. So what DDOT did was they installed flexi posts, and they did some paint. So they showed you cannot park here. And it's pretty good at deterring illegal parking and maintaining those sight lines for safety. Now, of course, those are flexi posts. People bang them. You can see they're pretty beat up right now. So they're not the best for deterring illegal parking. And some background on this is our city committed to Vision Zero, which is this goal other countries have tried which is saying, you know, no traffic deaths are acceptable. We should really try to get to zero. And the goal was to get to zero by this year. And not only are we not making progress, we're going in the wrong direction. Road deaths are higher than they were 10 years ago. So some other places that have been more successful have done daylighting. They've really focused on that, saying, let's keep visibility really good. And so DDOT agrees with this. They, you know, you can see their messages saying we support daylighting and making these intersections safer, but DC has a lot of intersections. They've been pretty slow. And one reason why I think this is really important is what we've seen is residents will know where there are dangerous intersections. You know, you avoid it, you know it, you've got a bad feeling when you go there. We've seen where a resident has died in a road crash, and then DDOT fixes the intersection. They know it's a problem, but they only fix it after there's a death or injury. And this resolution is to try to tell them, we don't want you to wait until after a death. We have a lot of close calls where, you know, we have a lot of dangerous intersections. And so I'll wrap this up, but another thing I'd add is, you know, you can incorporate multiple public benefits. You can use street art, you can use green infrastructure, because again, it's illegal. There's no parking there anyway. It's illegal to park there. That's a great place for the bioswales, the bioretention beds, because, you know, that helps the sight lines, it helps visibility, then it helps our environment. Again, a lot of great feedback on this. One I want to give a credit to is Ronald Kahn. I don't think he's on the meeting right now, but a great idea he brought was, he said, you know, let's broaden this to include, you know, when you see a sign that's covered by a tree limb or the paint is faded, that's also bad visibility. We really want our road signs to be clear, the paint to be very fresh, and that's included in the resolution to make all kinds of sight lines better for safety.
Commissioner Gosselin.
I want to just give a little travel on the example that Zach gave by way of commenting on this this resolution as it's drafted. That corner of Livingston and Connecticut, getting those bollards, those flex posts up, that's my SMD, and that took the neighbors along Livingston Street and me 2 years to get those things up. On its face, that's an argument for supporting this resolution. But I think that what is true here is that the real value and is going to be true of the next Ferguson resolution. The true value we can bring is we know these intersections, we know the particulars, and to pass a sort of general Jesus, we wish there were better sight lines. When we live here and we can put together a list, it is the more effective way to go. And so I'm reluctant to support this. I'm going to be very reluctant to support the next one. I think the history here speaks to specificity. I think that's the way to get DDOT to do something.
Okay. So Commissioner Ferguson, I would piggyback on what Commissioner Gosselin said. And earlier we were talking about, this goes back to, again, what Bruce talked about, and also you mentioned as well, in terms of other commission resolutions and how we can get the most bang for our buck. There was a really excellent resolution. I think Swale Siddiqui drafted it in maybe 3C. I can't, forgive me if I get that commission name wrong, but it was on, you know, basically kind of what we're talking about. They took kind of a broad approach to safety in terms of intersections and recommendations. And I believe that resolution was very specific in terms of the intersections that they were asking improvements for. And I love the resolution, but I honestly think it would be better if we were really specific on which intersections we think need this. I did not, and so I passed your resolutions out twice. Didn't get a lot of feedback, but one of the comments that I did get from one of my constituents also was a concern about the resolution looking almost seeming like we're giving DDOT blanket support to come into the community and kind of choose which way they want to go with daylighting. Would be much more comfortable with the resolution if we, and I think that would be broadening it and making it more specific to the particular intersections. My constituent also brought up parking for residences and businesses. And I do think, any time that we might end up losing parking spaces, I think it is absolutely a courtesy that constituent and businesses are aware of that. If there's any time that we could work in advance with the community on issues like this, I had that happen to a constituent that was a senior that lost parking, and it was devastating. I mean, it was so bad when she found out that she lost parking. She was so upset, literally, and I wrote a letter on this. They called MPD on her. It was that bad. So that really taught me a lesson that when we're doing something like that, that might have an impact on the community and members of our community, I do think we owe it to them. I'm very nervous, and this is with my history of working on the commission, of giving DDOT carte blanche for anything. And we can have great ideas. I think this is a great idea. And I think, same thing with the next resolution coming. But the one agency that has literally caused the most confusion in my community and neighbors to, after years, to continue to not speak to each other is DDOT, coming into communities and just doing what they want without giving the community the proper respect and engagement on the front end. So I'm with Commissioner Gosselin. I'm kind of nervous about this resolution and the next one coming up for that particular purpose. Commissioner Sherman.
You're muted, Bruce.
Sorry about that. Is the traffic safety input system an alternative vehicle?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to mention that because I think TSI is really obviously the most appropriate for specific intersections. I've submitted them. I saw the problem intersection I see is Chevy Chase Parkway in Connecticut. I saw 2 horrible crashes within a week. I was pushing my kid's stroller over shards of glass twice in 1 week. DDOT knows that's a bad intersection. I submitted the TSI request. I talked to neighbors, the neighboring ANC commissioner. So I think there's absolutely a great role. I think it's not either or. I think public, traffic safety, we have so many road deaths, so many injuries that, we should be a full court press on all fronts. If you care about making our, if you care about Vision Zero and not seeing traffic deaths and trying to eliminate all of them, we should be doing TSI requests. And again, for neighbors, if you don't know about them, they're great. You can do it by yourself. You don't need an ANC. You don't need anyone. You can get your neighbors to do more of them if you want, but it's not something the ANC needs to be doing. I think resolutions are another tool. Again, it's kind of interesting hearing 2 different arguments. One is that these resolutions make 0 impact. They're a waste of time. And the other argument is they're too powerful. The DDOT's going to go wild with this resolution. And just, so I'm hearing 2 very different concerns. And then I'll add, again, traffic intersection visibility, there's no legal parking spots. If you're parking, where the intersections meet, that is illegal, that's dangerous, and, you will get a ticket, you'll get, that's not legal. You can't, there's some places you just can't legally park, you can't block a driveway, So, and then the other thing I'd add is, let's see, I worry about, my SMD, we lost a senior citizen crossing Connecticut Avenue. They were killed, struck by a car. I really worry about sight lines. And so if I don't know your SMDs as well as you all do. If you have intersections you want to add to resolutions, I'd be happy to. I'm not in a place to say in your SMD, this is the intersection that should go on the list. So I just thought a general one would be helpful. The other ANCs who have heard about this shared that view. They're moving this one forward. But I understand if other commissioners don't want to see this one move forward, I'm happy to, just vote and move on,
Well, just to follow up on that, there are problematic intersections in my SMD, which we have flagged for DDOT. We have abundant traffic safety input requests in currently. I just reviewed them all today. We need to add them in certain intersections, but I would be supportive of identifying specific intersections, doing the community consultation on the matters that Commissioner Gore mentioned with regard to parking, and process it very specifically area by area. And then if we would want to then include those intersections in a resolution in addition to the TSI requests, I'm all for that.
Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, I was going to say what Zach already said to you, Commissioner Gore, that there should be no worry about losing parking here, because any parking done by an intersection is illegal, and no one's losing a legitimate parking space here. But I have just as a practical matter, I would say that this is where the transportation committee could be useful, and again, I'm jumping ahead to my report, but I finally realized that Christian Pinero needs to be at every one of our transportation committee meetings. Now, what a way forward with this and it's just not realistic to think DDOT is going to suddenly start fixing all these things anyway. There are limits to what they can do. And so one way forward would be we get together as a commission and decide, all right, each district can have 1, 2, or 3, however many we decide, high priority intersections, and then we communicate that to Christian and say, all right, look, these are the things that are our top priority. They're not even going to be able to do that, but that would be a way to do some kind of a triage here where we and by working closely with DDOT, I think we can somehow do better than with that TSI impersonal thing. Already, Christian we're working on sidewalks. I already got a walk around with him, and so this might be a way to deal with some of the concerns I've had, and just as a practical matter, go forward. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynch.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Ferguson, for bringing these. Maybe it would satisfy some of the other commissioners' concerns if a language was put in to say that DDOT should consult with the ANC before they consider a spot, and that there should be further discussion as a movement is made on the issue. But I'm in support of this. I think it's all right. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, and thank you. I wanted to emphasize some language. This is in my other resolution as well. The next one is community involvement and monitoring and reporting. Because I can understand, if you think this is a one-off resolution, there's nothing else going on, but the therefore, calling on action for the agency, it says, we request that DDOT work closely with the ANC, the Transportation Committee, and the broader community to identify intersections. So working with us, coming to the community, asking us what intersections we want work on, ensuring that local concerns are addressed expeditiously, and that residents have a voice in improving street safety. So the idea is not the 6 of us pass resolution and we've spoken, that's it. The idea is to spur DDOT to work with the whole community, to listen to local concerns, and then the next provision is monitoring and reporting. We want them not just to do one meeting where they they write down a list and they say, okay, we've heard legation in Connecticut or whatever it is. We want them to do regular updates on the planning and implementation of daylighting within the ANC. So again, community involvement is called for, and monitoring reporting. So the idea is not shove the community to the side, do what you want. It's work with us, help us make our streets safer.
Zach, before we go to community, would you be willing to add a footnote regarding the parking issue on the daylighting? Because I think people do feel like some of the parking that might come out of this is legal parking. Your conversation is basically saying, and your advice is that where daylighting occur, it's illegal to park in those areas anyway. Is it any circumstance where daylighting has resulted in the loss of legal parking?
That's right. And I try to be very, in my resolutions, I try to always give citations and, to primary sources, because I found in the ANC, there's a lot of misinformation. So I try to get primary sources. So I include a link to the DC law. And I mentioned, DC regulations already prohibits parking within 25 feet of intersections. So that's what I'm speaking to, is what the DC law already says you can't park there legally. That's where daylighting takes place.
Okay, I don't see that.
That's provision 3, existing regulations. And it's footnote 3.
The footnotes didn't come through on the version that's posted on the website.
Can I just address this issue though?
Yeah, Commissioner Gosselin, I'm sorry, go on.
While it may be the case that part of the improved daylighting is within the zone that DC law already prohibits parking in, it often requires more. And the example I would give is Military Road and Chevy Chase Parkway on the south side. As part of the improvements to improve safety at that intersection that this commission had a great deal to do with, they took at least one and maybe 2 parking places to add bollards, because the intersection is not square, so you have to come quite far out if you don't have a long view down the road. And I think, I'm not sure whether they did it on the east and west side or just the west side, but this is just an example of where you do have to, there are trade-offs here. And it's not just you don't always get adequate sight lines from just enforcing the 25 feet with bollards.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments before we move to community? Okay. Corinthia?
Hi, excuse me. So I just wanted to just note in my support of this daylighting. So it's really difficult, especially when you have like delivery cars that's parked there. I was actually in an accident on one of those areas on Connecticut and Legation. What Mr. Gosselin just said about Chevy Chase Parkway, when they took those parking spots, it's still difficult when cars were parked there, and it's difficult turning there because I take that road pretty often. So I'm fully in support of this, because crossing the road and even driving it's very difficult, especially on Livingston, Legation, and Military and Chevy Chase Parkway. And I just want to make sure that the commission continues to support resolutions regardless if they cover Great Way, especially the non-controversial ones like bus service. This supports everyone. So I hope we will, regardless if it has less or more Great Way, we will still push this forward, because as we've seen with the Lafayette field, people listen and people react to these resolutions. So just let's be consistent with that across the board with our resolutions. Thank you.
Thanks. Lee Mayer? You're on mute.
Lee, you're muted. Lee?
Yeah, sorry. For some reason, it wasn't unmuting. I was trying hard. I'm not, like you, Peter, I'm not in favor of these generic feel-good resolutions. I do think the daylighting proposition is a good one. I think being specific in certain locations would be much more effective than just going with a generic, we want daylighting. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that many of the buses and the bus stops are at the corners, and they do block the intersection. And that's, again, another reason why being specific, and I'm thinking of McKinley in Connecticut in particular, where the bus stop's almost on the corner, is something that, you know, again, we should be specific and not just come up with this generic that we want daylighting, and for all the other concerns that have been raised. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Sherman?
Yeah, so just coming back to kind of tactics on this, I think we're in agreement that we want to try to make something happen that would be a benefit for problematic intersections. The first thing that DDOT is going to ask, in my experience, and I've worked extensively with previous director Lott and Kirschbaum, now Christian Pinheiro, we all know Christian very well, and have put in, as I said, dozens of traffic safety input requests in my single member district for traffic calming, problematic intersections, stop sign running, and the rest. They're going to ask, do you have the TSI requests in? Are they already in place? If we send a resolution forward and they go and they look in the system, they don't see any requests, they're going to say, well, what the heck? You know, the citizens aren't requesting this. It's just kind of coming from the commission. So I would suggest that we work with our constituents. I had today, in fact, a mother of children whom she walks to Lafayette every day, bring up again the problematic intersection of Rittenhouse and Utah. It's called the Vortex. It's a 5-way stop, and it's a very confusing intersection. And I brought Lott and Janice Lewis George to my district in July of last year to visit with 100 neighbors in 6 different locations, pressing on problematic intersections and streets where there was excessive speeding. So I'm very familiar with this, and I think that if we do this in the right way, we could have a lot of impact, but we'd have to ensure that the TSI things are in already, or it's going to look like we're articulating this from at the commission level, but on the ground level, the residents haven't put the requests in.
Yep, I would, Commissioner Ferguson, obviously it's your resolution, it's your motion that you want to propose. I don't know if you got the votes for it or not, but in terms of procedure, I think that this could be a resolution that we hold over. I would love to pass it to the Transportation Committee, have the Transportation Committee further work it up to include specific intersections and interactions with businesses and community members if need be. I think Bruce is right. We do need to put TSIs in the system for these locations if we feel as a ANC that they're problematic and daylighting would be beneficial. Most ANCs that I've seen that have done resolutions like this do come in that order where they're referencing to push DDOT to address the TSI. So as specific as we probably could be would probably be the best process order. But I leave that up to you. This is your resolution. I'm definitely favorable for strengthening the resolution, passing it to Transportation Committee. So I don't want my vote or the community to misinterpret my vote as someone that doesn't take transportation issues seriously. I think we could probably put another foot forward and do it in a more procedural way.
So yeah, I've got some thoughts on, thank you all for the feedback. So I sent my resolutions about over 2 months ago to the commissioners and to the so with the Transportation Committee, it's given their feedback. We've gotten members of the public giving their feedback. That's been incorporated. You know, it's not just been heard, but these resolutions have each been changed. And so I asked every commissioner for their feedback, and I love this feedback. This is the first time I'm hearing it. So, you know, if I had heard 2 months ago that we should be specific and we should get, you know, I would have loved that feedback and would have ran with it. I didn't hear anything. I'm hearing a lot of it now actually almost all of it now for the first time. I think actually Jim Nash gave me some helpful line by line notes, especially on the bus one. So, you know, it's hard to incorporate feedback into resolutions if you don't hear them when, you know, you send the resolution 2 months ago and you hear it at the meeting. Again, also, TSIs are rolling. They're never going to be done. We have neighbors who are going to be submitting TSIs ongoing. We're never going to get them all together at once. And I think, I've been reporting TSIs. I assume all of you have. So I think we have them ready to go. I mean, I know there's plenty to work on for DDOT. And again, this resolution is the first step in getting more specific, calling on DDOT to work with us to get that specificity. So this does not preclude us from being specific. It gets it on DDOT's radar and says, hey, work with us, work with the community to get specific on intersections. But I thank you all for the feedback tonight. Again, I don't think any of the resolutions we have make a particularly enormous difference in the universe. So I'm happy if this is a 1-5 down vote, but either way, I'm ready to vote and move on.
So I call for the vote. Put your motion on the floor.
Yes, I move to approve the resolution advising increased daylighting and intersection visibility for safety in ANC 34G.
And I second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. No abstention. Motion does not carry. The vote is 3-3-0, and in a tie, the motion fails. So with that, I don't want to end on a sour note. Let's re-look at this.
Yeah.
I think this and I did not want this to fail. I do think that someone in the next term should take this resolution back up, send it to Transportation Committee, and let's really target the resolution. And I think we would probably have a passing resolution. Okay. That's just my suggestion.
And let me add that I'm happy to work with other commissioners in identifying the specific intersections and doing at our level as commissioners, the consultations with the neighbors first, so that they hear from us and understand what we're intending to do, and they can weigh in from the very beginning, and let it then be incumbent upon them with our assistance to file the TSIs.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really good examples that other commissions have done that really bring in the community into something like this. We could have it. The sky's the limit. I mean, we could do what we want to do with this, but I think that is something that we can look forward to in a new term. So with that, next resolution, Commissioner Ferguson, protected bike lanes in 34G.
Yeah, so if we want to, I think we have a cutoff at like 9:50 or 10. If we want to stick that, I'm happy to that. I would just note again, something that gets missed in this resolution is it has gone through community feedback. We have been going to, I hope all of you have been taking this to your neighbors and talking about it. It's up to every commissioner to do that. But we've gone through the Transportation Committee. Not many of our resolutions go to a public meeting and a subcommittee to get feedback before it comes to us. So I'm really happy with all the notes and edits I've gotten from the public. But again, I for this resolution, just I note that it specifically, again, calls for community involvement. This is not, the idea is not 7 commissioners on high point to where things should happen, but to call DDOT to work with us and the community to identify good bike solutions. Because I'm sure we all have neighbors with different views, but we've heard from neighbors who just simply don't feel safe. And we're encouraged, we passed the resolution unanimously for more bike share programs. So those have come. That was a resolution that had some impact. And so we have more residents biking. And a lot of those residents are telling us, I don't feel safe next to a 4,000-pound SUV or truck. And I'm open to whatever way we can make them feel safe and our roads safer. I don't have all the answers. I love feedback, especially getting it early and often is helpful. But I'm happy to table this if we want to stick to an earlier sign off.
So let me just address that. That's one of the reasons why we went to Zoom, is to get through these. I would highly recommend that the commission do not table this. because December is going to be another packed agenda. We've put these resolutions off meeting after meeting. And, just real quick, let me address the feedback issue. Every commission has its own culture. And this commission term has been culturally very different from previous terms that I've served on. Previous terms, there would be so much written feedback that the proposer of the resolution would be lost. I mean, I can tell you, I was screaming during certain terms because there was so much written feedback and you had to keep up with the emails and keep up with the changes. The culture of this term is the opposite. And there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, I've encouraged everyone on the commission to respond to resolutions as they come in and provide feedback. And culturally, we just don't do that on this commission. So it seems like, the feedback comes during the meeting, and that's okay. But the downside of that is the proposer doesn't have enough time to maybe incorporate changes that would pass a resolution. And we end up with what we kind of just ended up with. So I don't want any commissioner to kind of feel bad about that. It's the culture of the commission that I think we just all kind of have to respect. In this one, I'm kind of sitting the same that I sat before. In terms of the bike, and DDOT definitely weighs heavy on me in terms of that bike share resolution that we sent up. The most contentious bike share station was in 34G01, and it was at the bottom of 32nd Street, where and most of my constituents do not have a lot of issues, but when they do have an issue, you hear from them. Literally everyone on that street was up in arms. They hated it. And I went back and forth with Director Lott, very multiple conversations to finally get them to remove that station. And it was not easy. I had to do a lot of fighting and a lot of advocating because they put in, and this is where my concern comes from, they put those bike shares in locations where they want it. In my community, they didn't call for a bike share station right there. Now, nobody had a concern with the one on Pinehurst Circle. I didn't get one piece of negative feedback on that. But 32nd Street, absolutely. And it was not easy. And I think, my relationship with Director Lott went a long way in getting that removed. But that's the kind of scenario that I'm very, very leery of, dealing with Chestnut Street sidewalks, the bike share station on 32nd Street, not having some control and some advice and direction to DDOT on the front end. Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, Commissioner Ferguson brought this to the Transportation Committee, and we had some discussion about it. And as I recall, the most important feedback that we got was the importance of strengthening the community involvement in the location and installation of a protected bike lane. And I believe he did strengthen that. And I think that is really important. It does seem to me, from what I have heard, DDOT is going to be bringing some PBLs to our ANC. It seems very likely based on the conversation I've had. They're working on a 2-year plan right now to have a citywide PBL network. If it does come here, I do think it's really important that the community be involved, because there are trade-offs with PBLs. I would say much bigger ones than with daylighting. And pedestrians have concerns, bus riders do, people who park. So it leads to a lot of discussion, and it can be controversial. And so the reason I like this is, okay, we're saying to DDOT in general, we want PBLs here, but don't just tell us this is where it's going to be. You need to work with us so that we can work together to find the best place to put a PBL where we get the greatest rewards and try to mitigate the inevitable trade-offs. And so I believe that's what this resolution did. That was the feedback that we provided at the committee.
So let me introduce if we're going to be talking about it, I guess, longer than I just saw the calendar and saw like the schedule cut off at 9:50. But if we're going to continue, I'll introduce this properly. And one of the motivations for this is, I talk to a lot of parents with kids at school. I talk to a lot of neighbors. But one thing people might not know, and it's specific to our ANC, is our ANC does not have a single block, not a single inch of protected bike lanes. 14,000, 15,000 people, not a single protected bike lane. Now, DDOT, they say that research shows that protected bike lanes significantly improve the safety of bicyclists and increase safety for pedestrians and drivers. You might disagree with our transportation agency on that, but that's their professional advice. And we also have, we've heard it, in the bike share meeting, I think we heard from a parent who said, I fear for my kid a lot. I'm terrified to ride on so many of our streets next to SUVs, and painting a line between me and the giant truck is not comforting. And a lot of people feel unsafe. We've seen bicyclist deaths go up in the last few years if you look at the resolution. And so this is about safety. And if you have other ways, if you say, hey, there's a great way to make bicyclists, kids, parents, everyone the elderly feel safe riding, I'm open to those ideas. But our agency, and we have plenty of people who say, I'd like, we don't want a bike lane to nowhere where, okay, everyone agrees to it, but it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't get used, it costs a lot of money. We want the community involved saying, where do people actually want to go? Where do the trade-offs make sense? Because yes, everything has a trade-off. Everything we talk about at our meetings have trade-offs. So this resolution is not about saying, we know the right answers, they're here, here, and here. This resolution is just about saying, our professional agency, DDOT, says this is shown to increase safety. We have residents who are worried about safety. We've seen traffic deaths. We think certain things should be prioritized, like safe routes to school, and that's city policy. Our city currently encourages kids and families to ride bikes or walk to school. So if you're going to have that policy, and we have other policies like the bike share program, we have incentives for e-bikes, our city is encouraging people to ride a bike. If you're going to do that, people should feel safe and have a connected network that actually gets used. And that can be done in a way that works with the community, where everyone feels like they get a chance to speak up and that they get a chance to collaborate and be listened to and have a real discussion. And so that, again, if you look at the resolved, it talks about community engagement and respecting our great weight for when it is appropriate. So, and again, monitoring reporting is also included. So again, not a single inch of protected bike lanes here. That's where this is coming from. Interested to hear your thoughts.
Let's go to Commissioner Gosselin, then Commissioner Sherman.
I'm a 3-bike owner and a bike rider at near 75 years old. But I think the cause of bike lanes, protected bike lanes, was set back mightily by the proposal for Connecticut Avenue that was pushed and pushed and pushed until it finally crashed, at least temporarily. I kick myself for having not voted against it when it came up in my first term. The two people who were monitoring it spoke eloquently about all the problems and then voted for it, and I abstained. This time, I am not going to support a resolution that does not talk about specific places where we might put bike lanes, precisely because I'm afraid it will be an invitation to DDOT to revive Connecticut Avenue. Now, if the Connecticut Avenue proposal gets revived, I mean, I have compromise ideas. You want to put bikes and buses in the same protected lanes, I could support that. One of my real problems with Connecticut Avenue
Commissioner Sherman?
Yeah, as all of you know, I've just gone out to my community and asked people on this, and I presented the Resolutions Act to my constituents, not hypothetical, an actual resolution summarized in the question. As I put it to the community, I've now gotten nearly 170 responses, 80 plus written comments that have come in, and my community is evenly split on this. I need time to sort through where they are, read the comments. I'd like to actually do a Zoom call with my community, hear from people more specifically, and understand, follow up on some of the comments that they've given me. I think it's super important on an issue this controversial, given the history we had with Connecticut Avenue, to do this in a way that ensures maximum community support when we go forward. Otherwise, I think it's a prescription for disaster. I'm not saying anything about I don't weigh in with my personal views on bike lanes or anything else. I'm talking about my constituents and where they are and what they're telling me. And clearly they're very divided on this. And I think I certainly want to spend more time discerning where they are and what they would support. The other thing is that given what Commissioner Nash has just said about his take on where DDOT happens to be, I'd be interested in learning what the avenues are for us to work through that process to engage them now in what they already have going. I'm simply articulating that I have gotten a wealth of input, feedback from my constituents that I need to process and think about and hear more from them and discern where we would go from my district, because right now it's not clear.
So I will just piggyback on just what some of the other commissioners said and just reiterate. I really, really strongly feel the need that we need to slow down on maybe this one as well, and make sure that we have a full understanding of what we're asking DDOT to do. And Zach, I do, acknowledge that you put a lot of great information in the resolution about the benefits of bike lanes and the concerns and things like that. But under the resolve section, the first resolved is request for protected bike lane implementation. So, I go back to definitely the community involvement piece out of all the issues with Civic Corps and Murray. The next probably most contentious in the ANC is protected bike lanes. And I say that as a mom that had my son hit on a bike. I don't know if any other commissioners have witnessed that, but I witnessed my son be hit by a big BMW on a bike. And just last week, coming back from a community event, I witnessed a kid that goes to St. John that fell on his bike. And when I tell you this kid fell so hard and slammed his head like twice on the concrete, I immediately stopped my truck. Another resident stopped their truck and we went to assist. He lives on Western Avenue. We definitely have a need for public safety when it comes to, our folks riding bikes and kids biking to school safely. But I think we have to, given the split, and I thank you, Commissioner Sherman, for letting us know the results of the survey, because we are a community that is split on this issue and we have to do the groundwork. We have to do the groundwork. We have to do the groundwork on these divisive issues. We have to do it. I look at all the work we put in as an ANC on the Civic Corps trying to do the groundwork. We have not done that with the protected bike lane issue. So regardless of where I sit on this position, and I've said this continuously, I definitely strongly favor engagement, and we haven't done that on this issue. And I'm very leery of DDOT coming into communities, with the upper hand, and exacting the toll that they want to take on communities without input. DDOT's input is some of the worst in the city, or their engagement, the worst in the city. And Commissioner Nash, I'm definitely curious, your comment about DDOT putting bike lanes into the area. You think that's going to happen? If that's the case, and if there's evidence to that, the commission and the community needs to know what's going on there. I don't know. And I do not want that to come to the community at the last minute. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, but that's something that we should.
Well, I can tell you, I went to a DDOT meeting maybe a month or two ago. Commissioner Ferguson was there too. And this was a meeting that was about the plan they're doing right now. It's going to take a couple years, but they are working right now on a citywide bike network. The goal is this. Right now, they did what they call the low-hanging fruit, but they want it to be possible for anyone in the city to go anywhere in the city using a protected bike lane, or be close to it. That is their goal. So a citywide PBL network is what they are working on. That's all that's all they told me. That's all I know. But they had all the different wards and the number of PBLs in each ward. And Ward 3 was the second lowest of all the wards. And Ward 4 was not too far behind. And it's one of the largest in areas. And so the person in charge of this project said to me that, yes, that they understand that, and that they're going to be focusing on redressing some of these current imbalances of wards that lack PBLs. And Ward 3 is number 2. I think Ward 8 might be number 1.
Yeah.
So those are the reasons why I am predicting that PBLs will be coming to our area in the next couple years. But I don't think DDOT knows where that's going to happen, or even for sure that it will. But so that's the background for what I said.
Okay. Commissioners, let me go to community. Steve Seelig. Steve, you're on mute.
Okay. Trying to get my video too, so you can see that I exist, but no, you won't let me. That's all right. Thanks,
No,
Lisa.
Wait a minute, hang on a minute. We are not preventing community members from I just want to make it clear. We're not preventing community members from engaging the camera that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay. It says it won't let me, but that's all right. I'll speak. You can imagine, oh, there we go. You can imagine me sitting in my room like I am now. There you go. So, I appreciate what Peter said about this issue on Connecticut Avenue. I think there's a certain way to solve that issue, and it would be to introduce, Peter, a friendly amendment that says that we are not requesting that a bike lane be installed on Connecticut Avenue. Would that get your vote? That's one question I had. You can respond in a second. The other thing I just really want to point out to this ANC is that this is essentially a sense of the Senate type of resolution. It's one that says that you as commissioners support the notion that you would like to have the children of your constituents protected when they ride their bikes. And frankly, 3G and 4G are fairly spacious when it comes to the opportunities to do that. So I would like to say that. But further, I do find it somewhat disingenuous to say that until we get specific proposals, we can't say that we want any bike lanes whatsoever. And I will predict that this ANC, when presented with specific resolutions for bike lanes, is going to object to those. This is a time when you can get out there and say, this is what we believe. And Lee Mayer, his has got his hand up, so I'll speak to him right in advance. His group had said, we love bike lanes. We love protected bike lanes, but not on Connecticut Avenue. It's the wrong place. And so this is about all the rest of this ANC. And you guys should get behind this. And when the time comes, when you want your constituents to have their word about whether or not a bike lane goes into a specific spot, let's argue about it then. But let's get in line with saving a few lives out there. Thanks. Peter, you can respond to that request.
Oh, no.
So that wasn't your sole issue?
Not get my vote, because I mean, very simply, I think the city's aim, and it's an admirable aim, is to build an interconnected network. And I know Councilmember Fruimn, who I respect greatly, among other reasons because he's so straightforward, has been quite straightforward that he doesn't think there is another place in Ward 3 to have an effective north-south protected bike lane, but on Connecticut Avenue. Now, again, if we end up in that situation and we come back to a proposal for Connecticut Avenue and bike lanes, I think there are some compromises that might win my vote, unimportant as it is. But I mean, maybe if you can included buses in the same protected lanes, buses that under the plan that DDOT presented would be going into those protected lanes further down the Connecticut Avenue corridor. So, but that's a long ways off. So right now, I won't vote for this, even with that caveat. But you know, I'm just one commissioner. You asked for an answer, that's an answer.
Yeah.
Let me go to Lee Mayer.
Yeah, actually, when someone else is speaking, you can't undo the video. Anyway, this is problematic. We've seen this happen before. As it was pointed out on Connecticut Avenue, if you pass this resolution, and I urge you not to, you're basically giving DDOT a blank check to put in bike lanes wherever they want, and then they'll be able to turn around and say, well, your ANC approved it. And the ANC hasn't really seen specific locations, and that's what's really important. It's important also to note that several cyclist deaths have occurred by people who were riding in protected bike lanes. Obviously, we've talked about trade-offs. Bus service is one of those trade-offs. Obviously, parking, which is very important to many people, disabled, elderly, homeowners. These are all reasons why we need to see a proposal from DDOT with connected bike lanes before you guys, the commission, votes on anything generic like this. Thank you.
Steve, do you still have your hand up, or did you have another comment? Okay, Commissioner Sherman.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I've just begun, as I've indicated, to consult with my constituents on this. I would urge greater community consultation, community solicitation of their views. We have it within our means to do that. I think that would be very effective. And I will say that in my first reading of the comments that have come in to my small survey to my SMD 02 constituents, I've seen some very interesting thoughts that I hadn't even considered. And this may sound infeasible in some respects, but in terms of soliciting the views of the kids themselves in some fashion, engaging young people in terms of their preferences for biking to school, taking buses. It's come up, not from me, it's come up in the comments that I've gotten from my constituents. But there's a wealth already in the 81 or so comments that have come in of insights that I think would be very helpful for us to take a look at in terms of charting a path forward. But I think we're just on the very front end of doing that kind of consultation ANC wide.
Yeah, and if I can speak to the community engagement, I think a good way to maximize engagement is, I sent these resolutions 2 months ago. So if commissioners can get started on the community engagement, right when they get the resolutions, that's a great way to build in more time and get more word out, get the discussion going earlier rather than waiting a few months to get this conversation started. But my takeaway is, if you talk to parents, it's nice being at a community school. You get to talk to a lot of parents. I've been to a lot of environments talking to people who don't typically come to our ANC meetings. If you haven't noticed, we don't have a lot of teenagers, even young parents. That's not the bulk of who comes to a Monday night meeting. But there's a great concern about the safety of kids getting to school, both walking, biking. And what I've seen in the commission is there's not a sense of urgency. Because again, I don't think my resolution is the only way to make improvements. But I think residents want to feel heard and that there is a sense of urgency to give their kids safe routes to schools and to make it safe for bicyclists who don't feel safe, or people who want to bike, but they say, I'm terrified out there. I had a near miss, or, so I would hope the ANC could find other, again, there's not one way to do this, but we've also just seen concrete, it's increase in deaths, road deaths. And again, I'm looking at the ANC's resolutions, and I'm not seeing much concern or urgency about our residents who feel unsafe on the roads, our kids who feel unsafe riding bikes here. I mean, riding a bike is a pretty normal kid thing to do. And we're not, so I hope whatever the fate of this resolution, I don't particularly am that married to it, but that the commission listens to the people who are out there and not feeling safe and want some improvements.
Let me go to Cal and then Commissioner Nash.
Hi, everybody. As far as community engagement goes, many of you have heard me talk and also post on the Chevy Chase listserv about a different form of community engagement in which the community engages with itself and has conversations and dialogue about issues in which, and Bruce Sherman's example of the split in his community about this issue is a perfectly good example of that. Now, I know the ANC has limitations on what they can do in terms of the formats of their meetings, but I don't. And so as we move this forward, I'm going to propose and design a community engagement that's very different than anything we've seen here before, where the community actually engages with each other. People with opposing viewpoints are engaging in a very different way than they ever have before.
Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, I want to agree with Commissioner Ferguson about the importance of parents who do not feel that their children can bike or walk to school safely. This is a big deal. It came up also in the survey that our transportation committee did. Many parents are feeling this, and we don't hear from them because they're too busy to come to our meetings. We hear about old fuddy-duddies who don't want to be inconvenienced in their cars, kind of like people like me, I guess. And it's interesting that Commissioner Gore is the one commissioner who had a son or daughter hit by a car, and that gets through. So I do see a split, and I worry that the split is between younger parents of kids who are moving into our neighborhood, and they're just not breaking through very much. To me, this is a simple case. I mean, are you for, in principle, protected bike lanes somewhere, anywhere in our district. And if you are, then you should vote for it. As for the details of where it is, yes, the devil are in the details. That's exactly why Commissioner Ferguson didn't want to put that in there. If he put details in there, everyone would say, no, not there, or, there'd be a problem. So this is simply saying, look, are you in general in favor of some kind of protected bike lanes for people to bike to schools or to stores so we can avoid the daylighting problem because of the parking, or wherever. So that I won't say anymore. I'm voting for it, and I wish everyone else here would too.
Commissioner Sherman.
I just want to say that I completely hear that, Commissioner Nash and Commissioner Ferguson, that parents are concerned about the safety of their children. I hear it. I see it in the comments. I have 81 written comments. I've just gotten them over the last 3 weeks. I've just asked people about this. It's as if I sat down with 81 people and they told me directly. At the same time, I have comments, and you can see them what I sent you, from parents who are concerned about other factors. And so this is why I say it's a complex matter. I've just gotten this information. I will tell you that a year and a half ago, or a year plus, I did a bike lane survey of my constituents then. And this was with respect to Connecticut Avenue. And I had another 160 or some respondents, and there were 2-to-1 against the bike lanes. It wasn't up for discussion at the time. A lot of people were talking to me about it, so I just asked them where they were on it. This is different because it's talking about protected bike lanes throughout the neighborhood. It's obviously focused on kids getting to school, and I put that in the question. Still in all, it's an even split, it's very complex, and things don't line up neatly according to a dichotomy of parents and older people. It just doesn't work that way. They're kind of all over the place on this, actually. And I just need to do justice to that. I would ask that unless there's some urgency to this, to pass this now.
If I can save you. I see where you're going. I need to run. I have family obligations, so I'm going to withdraw this. Speaking of that, thanks all for the time. I'll have to drop off, but I'll see you all next meeting. I read online that I wouldn't be at the next meeting. That's not true. I've never said that. I wouldn't believe everything you read. I look forward to the next meeting. Thanks all for considering things.
All right, well, then we're not going to vote on it, I guess, so we can move on.
Wow.
Try to vote on it.
Well,
I'm seeing the reactions. I have a newborn. I've got to run. It's just not like a planned storm. When you have family obligations, the ANC does not come before the family. So I'm sorry, this is inconvenience. But if we can just table it.
let me just go to procedures, folks. There is no motion on the floor. If you want to table it, that has to be a motion.
I move to table this resolution.
Okay, I second.
So, commissioners, the motion is to table the resolution. All those in favor?
Look, in deference to Zach, I'll vote in favor.
Okay, 6-0. Motion table. Thank you. Okay. So just procedurally, when we want to discuss this again, we have to take it off the table, okay? So just keep that in mind. Motion to table carries. So with that, we'll move on to committee reports. I don't think we have anything from ZDD. Do we have any reports from race? Seeing none. Any from Murray? Seeing none. Transportation?
Okay, so I'm going to start with a summary of the Better Bus service changes that the WMATA approved just very recently. And, the biggest news is that for the first time in 4 years, there will be direct service to our Civic Core, Upper Connecticut Avenue businesses and medical appointments in Friendship Heights. And it's planned to be restored for residents of Barnaby Woods, Hawthorne, and Knollwood, although there's a caveat with Knollwood. So it appears as though what WMATA will be doing, and this will happen in July, I believe, of 2025, next year, it appears to be a clockwise loop providing one-way service on Utah, Western, and Oregon avenues. This service would run on weekends and late evenings. The frequency will be every 30 minutes on weekdays and every 60 minutes on weekends. So that is a kind of restoration of the E6, not totally, but we felt that we got heard to some degree by WMATA. Next, the M4, or most of it, weekend and late night service to his Sibley Hospital is planned from points south and east of Military Road and Nebraska Avenue. And then there's also a new route, a rush hour service between Silver Spring and Van Ness. And then another, these are kind of the good points from what WMATA did. E4, the service would not be rerouted to Military Road. The narrower section west of Nebraska Avenue, that is. So this is still not determined because the problem is, will the E4 successor run along McKinley? And that, for a variety of reasons, has yet to be determined. The overwhelming majority of residents who provided comments to WMATA wanted service to remain on McKinley for a variety of reasons. People on McKinley, however, would have to lose parking on one side of the street, and the people on McKinley Street the majority do not want to lose parking in order to preserve bus service route. So the new route is going to be somewhat uncertain for a while until they get the McKinley route sorted out. But they're trying to do what they can to stay off Military and to stay north of Military along McKinley. At times they're going to be on Nevada, it looks like. There are some things that they are taking away, however. There will not really be an E4 from Fort Totten to Friendship Heights. That is gone. The E4 line has been there for 75 years. It's being replaced by this neighborhood shuttle-like service that I described above that is kind of the replacement to the E6. Bus stops on McKinley Street and 30th Place would temporarily be discontinued east of Chevy Chase Parkway. And so this means the nearest bus stops to Lafayette School would be close to about half mile away to the east on Nebraska Avenue and a third of a mile southwest on McKinley and Chevy Chase. And then one final note, I've already spoken to Commissioner Sherman about, there will be no trips entering the Knollwood property on the M4. That's because the buses are getting too big. And so we're going to be trying to work with Knollwood and WMATA to get that fixed. Okay, so that's a very brief report. These are a lot of changes, and we still don't know all of them. But I want to in my report, I want to make this point that I think is very important. This ANC has passed resolutions for years on the E6, and this is an example of how resolutions alone don't do it. What you really need are people going out there, showing up at hearings, writing to WMATA, and I want to thank everyone on the Bus Transit Working Group, led by Michaela and Cal. They just did a tremendous amount of work, and I believe that is what made the difference in bringing back some kind of semblance of the E6. Also, I have letters of thanks to WMATA council members Fruimn and Louis George, because that's the other thing that we did. We worked, of course, with our council members, and we got them both to write letters of support to WMATA. And those letters I sent out, I think all commissioners have them. And I think I'm going to sign it and Chair Gore will. And I'm assuming, I don't know, do we need to vote on that?
We do, because it's going to actually be from the commission.
Okay.
So we'll both sign it, but it'll be from the commission.
Okay, so then I guess when I'm finished, I'll make a motion for that. All right, other news from the committee. I mentioned earlier before, we are now collaborating with DDOT. I think that's really important. So Christian now attends every one of our Thursday evening meetings. He's okay with meeting in the evening. And one fruit of that is finally we're going to get a walk around on the horrible sidewalks on Military Road in my single member district. We're going to get that with Christian and people on that side, on the sidewalk infrastructure group at DDOT next month. Another thing we're doing is we're collaborating with other ANC transportation committees. December 5 is a Ward 3 and Ward 4 West of the Park Summit called by Chuck Elkins. And we're going to get together and talk about what do we have in common? How can we work together? And a big part of that is going to be DDOT oversight and budget hearings. Can we have more impact if we all work together? But I want to tell you something else. I have learned just from listening to them about two things. One is the importance of having Christian come to our meetings. That was really dumb on my part. I didn't know that before. Also, I'd like everyone to look at the protected bike lanes on New Mexico Avenue. All right. That was something that the ANC did collaboratively with DDOT. And they worked with opponents of bike lanes. They worked with people who take the buses. They believe over in 3D that they found something that made everybody happy and everybody feels safer there. So take a look at New Mexico Avenue. That is the model that I think we should follow going forward when PBLs come to us. It can be done. It has been done by them. So that's another value to working with these other ANC transportation committees. Okay, I think, oh yeah, in our future work, I've already mentioned, I think PBLs are going to be in our future. I think we have work to do there. We have more work to do on pedestrian safety. The daylighting, that's more work. We also need work on monitoring the changes to our bus service, because these changes are going to be that they're going to look at how are these changes working. And we will have a role in that, saying, you know, we like this, we don't like that. They got rid of a bus stop here, they put one there. You know, what's going on at Knollwood is another example. We also need to be sure we get people to ride the buses in these new routes. We need to get the word out. So there's a lot of work to be done by the bus transit working group, part of the transportation committee. Also, oh yeah, it's also, Michaela told me, we've got to understand that all of the changes that are, you know, they're mostly good. The WMATA Board of Directors and staff mentioned several times, these changes depend on sufficient funding to cover the plan. And if there is a shortfall, all bets are off. And so we've got to be monitoring carefully the WMATA budget, which is always a mess. Okay, that ends my report, but you know, I don't.
Motion on the floor, Jim, about the letters.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I'd like to make a motion that the ANC send the 3 letters of thanks that I have sent to you all. One goes to Commissioner Fruimn, Councilmember Fruimn. One goes to Councilmember Louis George and their staff, and the third goes to WMATA. And that's thanking them for listening to us,
Is there
basically.
a second?
Second.
Commissioner, all those in favor, and let me, Jim, let me ask you for a friendly amendment. Can we say as amended? Because there might be edits.
Yeah. Yes.
If we format it, okay.
Right.
Commissioners, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 5, 0, 0, that carried. Cal?
Yeah, I just want to say, we actually do know all the details of all the changes in the very final plan. We got on election day. As I did back in May, I'm writing up all those gory details in a document, and I will post the access to that document on the Chevy Chase listserv probably by Wednesday morning. So you'll all be able to see all of it that relates to our area.
Just a quick question. Has DDOT updated their own website for the Better Bus Network in terms of these most recent changes? Is it already available?
WMATA.
Sorry, WMATA.
Yes. Yes.
So the information that you just covered, Jim, is at the WMATA website now in terms of the bus routes that you're.
I wasn't aware of that.
No. I'm asking the question because I want to lift it and share it with people.
It is, but it's very difficult. Most people complain about how difficult it is to extract what you need. So the reason I'm doing this document is to put everything in an organized way that makes sense for our community.
Okay.
So I would suggest you use that document, and we'll also post it on the ANC website.
Yeah, and of course, you have to bear in mind that they're changing the names of routes as well as the routes of routes. So it won't be the E4 anymore.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the advantages of the document I put together is that you don't really get that correspondence so easily by slogging through the WMATA material.
Okay. All right, commissioners, let's move on. Commission business. We don't have a secretary report. I am hoping that we have, I know Zach had to drop off, but I believe we have everything in order with third quarter QFR. Bruce, do you know if, I know I signed, I believe you signed. Do you know if that what's the last message from OANC on that?
I'll check it tomorrow, verify it.
All right. And in terms of the next meeting, December 9th, 2024, it'll be a regular meeting. Possible agenda items, discussion, and possible vote. We have another, I don't know whose this is, but 2728 Rittenhouse public space permit application. I think that's Zeldin's. I will send.
No, it's mine. No, it's a curb cut down by Nebraska. I've already talked to the guy.
Okay, just make sure you.
No, I've already spoken to the engineering company. I've spoken to the developer. I've had like an hour of conversation on this already.
Thank you. If you can get the commissioners and Commissioner Gosselin all the documents so we could post them up on the website as soon as possible.
They're to get them to me this week, I believe, or next. So yes, we'll have them.
Great. And then Commissioner Gosselin, we have the application from Friends of Chevy Chase, the grant application. So that's a possibility.
And then the zoning issue that Commissioner Sherman and I
have that. So possible vote on the 2024 annual report from the commission, Connecticut Avenue zoning, Civic Core RFP update. And December 9th will be the last meeting of the year. I am also going to see if I can get the students who wrote to commissioners to come to that meeting. So if it looks like it's going to go past what we can do at the Civic Center, we'll also do that one online. Commissioner Lynch.
Yeah, this is not, I don't have anything established yet, but I've reached out to a couple people, and I think it would be wise to have someone speak about the upcoming threats to home rule in the district and what that means for the ANC and how we can all prepare for what might be coming in the next 4 years.
Well, you know what, you're exactly right. And I think, I know it's late. I don't want to belabor the point, but we have got to as an ANC, we got to talk about that because we get our authority under home rule. So if home rule is a threat, our authority is in jeopardy. There's been a lot of conversations with Democratic clubs across the city that's been talking about that. So I agree, Commissioner Lynch. We really, as an ANC, and it's nothing that we, could possibly do right now, but it's something that we gotta talk about and think about. So that's perfect. I'll add that.
It's also worth maybe a longer conversation. So if other commissioners wanted to partner with a special meeting of some kind where we're able to have a more drawn out conversation and possibly with a couple more guests, I would be happy to partner on that as well. And maybe even with a couple other ANCs.
I was going to say, I think that's excellent.
Is that taken up with the new ANC? I mean, we're zooming into December and talking about essentially the end of our authority when it's the next group of people who are going to have to cope with this. I don't know. I'll follow the lead of my colleagues.
Yeah, it's a great topic. Anything else for December 9th? Okay, with that, commissioners, we're adjourned. It's 10:35. Just want to thank everyone. I knew we couldn't get through this at the community center, but we had a lot to get through that we absolutely, the space permits just for the general public's awareness is really important because that involves, obviously our community members trying to get things done. But thank you everybody for your patience, and we'll see you on December 9th.
Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.
You'll check your